"Don't come closer," JIMIN said, his voice shaking, but his eyes were still stubborn, still angry, still pretending he was fine. JUNGKOOK stopped in the middle of the practice room, breathing hard, fists clenched, while RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, and Taeyoung stood frozen near the mirror, not knowing whether to step in or let the fight burn itself out. Then, JIMIN suddenly pressed one hand to his chest, took one broken breath, and collapsed onto the cold wooden floor. Everyone shouted his name at once, but JUNGKOOK reached him first, dropped to his knees, pulled JIMIN into his arms, and whispered something so low only JIMIN could hear it. And right there, with his eyes still closed, JIMIN's tears fell. Before we continue, tell me in the comments where you are watching from, and answer honestly. If someone you loved pretended to be strong until they broke in front of you, would you forgive them, or would you demand the truth? The fight had started with one sentence. One sentence from JUNGKOOK that sounded cold, careless, and final. Maybe you should stop acting like everyone owes you protection. The room went silent after that. JIMIN stared at JUNGKOOK like JUNGKOOK had slapped him in front of everyone. But instead of shouting back, he laughed once, bitter and small. The kind of laugh that made Jin's face change and made J-Hope whisper, "JIMIN, don't." But JIMIN was already walking backwards, wiping his lips with the back of his hand like he was trying to erase the pain before anyone noticed. You think I wanted protection? You think I wanted any of you to see me like this? JUNGKOOK's expression didn't move, but his eyes did. They followed every tremble in JIMIN's hands, every uneven breath, every sign that something was wrong. RM stepped forward trying to calm the room, but Suga grabbed his sleeve and shook his head, because Suga had noticed it too. JIMIN was not just angry, he was terrified. Taeyoung looked between them, confused, hurt, and suspicious, because he had been the one who found the locked message on JIMIN's phone that morning, the message that said, "If JUNGKOOK finds out what you did, everything ends tonight." JIMIN saw Taeyoung looking at him, and his face changed. For 1 second, the strong mask fell. For 1 second, he looked like someone who had already lost. Then he turned back to JUNGKOOK and said the cruelest thing he could say. "You were never the person I trusted most. You were just the person I hoped would never find out." JUNGKOOK's jaw tightened. The others looked shocked, but JUNGKOOK only took one step closer and asked in a voice too quiet to be safe, "Find out what, JIMIN?" JIMIN didn't answer. He only smiled like he was choosing pain on purpose. Then his knees weakened, his body gave up, and he fell. But the truth was, JIMIN had not fainted. Not completely. He had heard JUNGKOOK's footsteps rush towards him. He had felt JUNGKOOK's hands shake against his back. He had heard Jin calling for help and RM ordering everyone to move. And then JUNGKOOK leaned close to his ear and whispered, "I know you're awake. I know you're scared. And I know you did it to protect me." That was when JIMIN's tears slipped out, because JUNGKOOK was not supposed to know. Not about the threat, not about the sacrifice, not about the secret JIMIN had buried for months, and definitely not about the one person inside their own circle who had been helping the enemy watch them. JUNGKOOK's whisper stayed in JIMIN's ear like a wound that had learned how to speak. "I know you're awake, I know you're scared, and I know you did it to protect me." JIMIN kept his eyes closed, but his body betrayed him. His fingers tightened against JUNGKOOK's sleeve for half a second, too quick for anyone panicking around them to notice. But JUNGKOOK noticed everything when it came to JIMIN. He always had. That was the problem. RM was already shouting instructions, his voice firm even though his face had gone pale. Jin was kneeling beside Jimin, one hand hovering near his forehead, afraid to touch too hard, afraid that one wrong move would make everything worse. J-Hope kept repeating Jimin's name under his breath like a prayer, while Taeyoung stood frozen near the mirror, phone still in his hand, eyes wide with guilt because he knew this had not started with the argument. It had started with the message he had seen. It had started with the secret none of them were supposed to find. Suga was the only one who did not move much. He stood a few steps back, arms tense at his sides, his eyes not on Jimin's face, but on Jungkook's hands, on the way Jungkook held him like he was afraid Jimin would disappear if he loosened his grip. "Call the manager, now." Jin looked at Jungkook. "Move, Jungkooka. Let me check him." But Jungkook did not move. His face was unreadable, but his voice came out low and dangerous. "No." Jin blinked. "What do you mean, no?" Jungkook lifted his eyes, and for the first time that night, the cold mask cracked. Something is wrong here. RM stepped closer. Of course something is wrong. He collapsed. He didn't collapse because of the fight, Jungkook said. The room froze again, but this silence was different. This one had teeth. Jimin felt it even with his eyes closed. He did feel the attention shifting, feel the others looking not only at him, but at each other. He wanted to get up. He wanted to tell Jungkook to stop, to shut up, to not say anything else. But if he opened his eyes now, everyone would know he had been pretending. And maybe that was what he deserved. Maybe he deserved to be exposed in the ugliest way possible. But Jungkook's thumb moved once against his wrist, a small warning, a small command. Stay still. Trust me. Jimin hated that his body obeyed. Taeyoung finally spoke, his voice rough. Jungkook, what do you know? Jungkook did not answer him right away. He looked down at Jimin, and Jimin could feel the heat of that stare through his closed eyelids. Then Jungkook leaned closer again, not enough for everyone to hear, only enough for Jimin to understand. You wanted them to think you broke because of me. Why? Jimin's throat tightened, because if they believed it was just a fight, they wouldn't look deeper. Because if everyone thought Jungkook had hurt him, then Jungkook would be pushed away from the real danger. Because if the person watching them believed Jimin had lost Jungkook's trust, maybe the threat would stop. But Jimin could not say any of that. Not with Taeyoung standing there with the message. Not with RM already suspicious. Not with Suga looking like he had solved half the truth and hated the half he had not solved yet. Jungkook, Jin said again, quieter now. Let him breathe. Jungkook finally let Jin touch Jimin's forehead, but he did not let go of Jimin's hand. Not even when the manager rushed in, not even when everyone started speaking at once. The manager looked scared, but there was something else behind his fear, something too controlled, too quick. His eyes went first to Jimin, then to Jungkook, then to Taeyoung's phone. What happened? RM answered. Jimin collapsed after an argument. The manager's expression tightened for only a second, too short, almost invisible, but Suga saw it, Jungkook saw it, and Jimin, even with his eyes closed, heard the pause before the manager spoke. Then we should keep this quiet. J-Hope turned to him. Keep this quiet? He needs help. He will get help, the manager said quickly, but no hospital unless absolutely necessary. There are reporters outside the building tonight, one photo of Jimin being carried out after a fight with Jungkook, and tomorrow the whole world will turn this into a scandal. The word scandal entered the room like smoke. It touched everyone. It made Jin's mouth press shut. It made RM lower his head for a second, calculating consequences he didn't want to calculate. It made Taeyoung look sick. But Jungkook's face hardened. So your first thought is the headline? The manager swallowed. My first thought is protecting all of you. Jungkook gave a cold laugh with no humor in it. That's funny. The manager looked at him. What is that supposed to mean? Jungkook held Jimin closer. It means I'm starting to wonder who you've really been protecting." Jimin's heart slammed so hard he almost opened his eyes. "No, no, Jungkook, not here, not yet." The manager got still. RM looked between them sharply. "Jungkook, explain." But Jungkook did not explain. Instead, he looked at Taeyoung. "Show them the message." Taeyoung's hand tightened around the phone. His eyes flicked to Jimin on the floor, and for a moment he looked like a child caught holding something breakable. "I don't know if I should." "Show them," Jungkook said, and there was no softness in his voice now. Taeyoung slowly unlocked the screen. The message was still there. Short, simple, cruel. "If Jungkook finds out what you did, everything ends tonight." Jin took the phone first. His face changed as he read it. Then RM read it. Then J-Hope. Suga did not take the phone. He only asked, "When did that come in?" Taeyoung answered, "This morning. I saw it by accident when Jimin left his phone in the studio. I asked him about it and he told me not to get involved." RM turned toward Jimin. "And nobody told me?" The hurt in his voice was sharper than anger. Taeyoung lowered his head. "He begged me not to." Jungkook looked down at Jimin again. "Of course he did." Jin's voice cracked. "What did he do? What is the message talking about?" No one answered, and that was when Jimin couldn't take it anymore. He opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was Jungkook's face above him, too close, too pale, too much pain he was trying to hide. The second thing he saw was everyone else staring at him like he had returned from somewhere dark. Jimin swallowed. "I'm fine." Nobody believed him. Jin's eyes filled with angry relief. Do you know what you just did to us?" J-Hope covered his mouth with one hand and turned away like he needed 1 second not to cry. RM looked furious, but underneath that fury was fear. Suga only stared. Taeyoung finally whispered, "You were awake?" Jimin pushed weakly against Jungkook's arm, trying to sit up, trying to regain control of the room before the room swallowed him whole. "I said I'm fine." Jungkook did not let go of Jimin. "You lied." Jimin looked at him. "So did you." The sentence landed hard. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. "About what?" Jimin's smile trembled. "About not caring." For 1 second, Jungkook looked like he had been hit. Then he looked away. But the damage was already done. Everyone had heard it. Everyone had felt the thing between them that neither of them wanted to name in front of the others. The manager cleared his throat. "This is exactly why we need to calm down before anyone says something they regret." Suga finally moved. He stepped toward the manager, slow and quiet. "No, this is exactly why nobody leaves this room until we know who sent that message." The manager's face went stiff. "Yoongi, this is not your job." Suga smiled, but it was not kind. "Then maybe someone should explain why you look more scared of that phone than of Jimin lying on the floor." The room went colder. Jimin's eyes flew to Suga. Jungkook's hand tightened again. RM turned fully toward the manager. "Is there something you need to tell us?" The manager opened his mouth, but before he could answer, Jimin sat up too fast and grabbed Jungkook's wrist. His voice came out broken. "Stop, please." Jungkook stared at him. "Why?" Jimin's eyes shone, but he refused to let the tears fall again. "Because if you keep asking questions tonight, you won't just hate me, you'll hate yourself for believing me this long." And that was when the first real crack appeared, not in Jimin, but in the story everyone thought they knew.
They moved Jimin to the small waiting room behind the studio, because Jin refused to let him stay on the floor, and Jungkook refused to let anyone carry him except himself. Jimin hated it. He hated the way his body leaned into Jungkook, even when his pride screamed not to. He hated how Jungkook held him carefully, one arm behind his back and one under his knees, like Jimin was not someone who had just lied to all of them, but someone worth saving anyway. The hallway lights were too bright. Every step felt like judgment. RM walked ahead, checking corners, making sure no staff member was watching. J-Hope followed close behind with water and a towel. Taehyung trailed in silence, still holding the phone like it had burned into his palm. Suga stayed beside the manager, not touching him, not accusing him, just walking close enough to make sure he could not slip away. When they reached the waiting room, JUNGKOOK lowered JIMIN onto the couch, but he did not step back. JIMIN looked up at him and said quietly, "You can stop acting worried now." JUNGKOOK's eyes flashed. "You can stop acting like you don't want me to be." Jin snapped, "Both of you, shut up." That actually silenced them. Jin stood in front of JIMIN with his hands on his hips, the oldest member, the one who joked the most, suddenly looking like someone who had run out of patience for everyone's pain. "You pretended to faint, you scared us, you scared me. So before any of you start another dramatic starring contest, JIMIN, drink this." He pushed the water bottle into Jimin's hand. JIMIN took it not because he wanted to, but because Jin looked ready to pour it into his mouth himself. J-Hope sat beside him, close but not touching. "Hayoung," JIMIN whispered. J-Hope shook his head, voice soft but hurt. "Don't do that. Don't say my name like you're already apologizing before telling us what happened." Jimin looked down. The room settled into a tense half-circle. RM closed the door. The manager remained near it, and Suga immediately noticed. "Why are you standing there?" The manager forced a tired smile. "Because I'm trying to think." "Think sitting down," Suga said. The manager did not move. JUNGKOOK finally turned to him. "Sit." It was only one word, but it carried something that made even RM glance at him. The manager sat. Jimin's fingers tightened around the water bottle until the plastic cracked. RM took one slow breath. "We start from the beginning, JIMIN who sent the message." Jimin did not answer. RM's jaw tightened. "JIMIN, I don't know," Suga immediately said. "Lie." Jimin looked up. "I said I don't know." "You know enough to be scared," Suga replied. "That's not nothing." Taehyung stepped forward. "You told me it was a prank." Jimin's face twisted. "Because you looked like you were about to run into a wall for me." Taehyung's eyes filled with frustration. "Maybe I would have. Maybe that would have been better than watching you collapse in front of us." "I didn't collapse. That makes it worse." The words hurt because they were true. Jimin looked away, but JUNGKOOK was still watching him, still too quiet. That quiet scared Jimin more than yelling. JUNGKOOK angry was painful. JUNGKOOK silent was dangerous. RM turned to JUNGKOOK. "You said you know he did it to protect you. What did you mean?" JUNGKOOK's gaze stayed on Jimin. "Ask him." Jimin laughed bitterly. "Coward." JUNGKOOK leaned in slightly. "I'm giving you a chance." "No," Jimin said. "You're cornering me in front of everyone. You cornered yourself when you pretended to faint. I did that because you wouldn't stop pushing. I pushed because you wouldn't stop lying." Their voices rose with every line, not loud but sharp enough to cut. Jin rubbed his face. "I swear you two are impossible." RM lifted a hand. "Enough, Jimin, nobody here wants to hurt you, but that message is a threat. It mentions JUNGKOOK, it mentions something you did. It came the same day you two had a public schedule cancelled without explanation. So yes, we need answers." Jimin's face went still, too still. Suga noticed. "There it is." J-Hope looked at him. "What?" Suga's eyes narrowed. "The cancelled schedule, that's connected." The manager suddenly said, "No, it is." Everyone turned. He realized too late that he had spoken too fast. RM's voice dropped. "How do you know?" The manager's mouth opened, then closed. Jimin shut his eyes. JUNGKOOK stood. "I knew it." The manager lifted both hands. "Don't make this something it is." Suga gave a short laugh. "You keep saying that like you already know what it is." RM stepped closer. "Tell us." The manager looked at Jimin, and there it was again, that silent warning. Jimin felt it like a hand around his throat. "Do not speak. Do not break the deal. Do not drag JUNGKOOK into this." JUNGKOOK saw the look. He moved between Jimin and the manager. "Don't look at him." The manager's expression hardened. "JUNGKOOK, you need to calm down." "I am calm." "No, you're emotional." JUNGKOOK's voice became almost gentle, and that made it worse. "You haven't seen emotional yet." Jin stood quickly. "JUNGKOOK." But JUNGKOOK did not move toward the manager. He only reached into his pocket and pulled out his own phone. 3 months ago, someone leaked the private entrance location before our late-night rehearsal. The company said it was a random breach. 2 months ago, Jimin's solo demo disappeared from the studio drive. The company said it was a technical error. Last month, a video of me leaving Jimin's apartment building almost got sold to a gossip account, but the sale stopped because someone paid more for it to disappear. RM's face changed with every sentence. J-Hope whispered, "How do you know that?" JUNGKOOK looked at Jimin. Because I stopped pretending not to notice. Jimin's lips parted, but no sound came out. JUNGKOOK continued, and this week someone told Jimin that if he didn't create distance from me in front of the members, they would release something that makes me look like I used him, like I controlled him, like every choice he made was because of me. The room went silent. Jin slowly looked at Jimin. Is that true? Jimin's eyes were wet again. He whispered, not exactly. JUNGKOOK turned sharply. Not exactly. Jimin's voice shook. It wasn't just about you. Taehyung took a step closer. Then who else? Jimin looked at him, and the guilt in his face made Taehyung stop breathing for a moment. All of you. RM's shoulders stiffened. What did they have? Jimin squeezed his eyes shut. Old clips, private conversations, edited recordings, things that could be twisted, things that could make fans fight each other, make the company blame us, make the group look broken. J-Hope's face crumpled. Why didn't you tell us? Jimin looked at him helplessly. Because they didn't threaten me first. His voice became smaller. They threatened JUNGKOOK, then Taehyung, then Namjoon Hyung. Every time I tried to ignore it, they sent proof they were closer than I thought. Schedules, practice rooms, hotel floors, personal messages. RM's anger turned into something colder. This is stalking. This is blackmail, Suga said. Jin stared at the manager. And you knew. The manager's face had gone gray. I knew there were concerns. Suga's laugh was sharp. Concerns? The manager looked trapped now, but still defensive. You don't understand the scale of what could happen if this becomes public. RM's voice cut through the room. Then make us understand. The manager hesitated. Jimin opened his eyes. Don't. JUNGKOOK looked at him. Still protecting him. I'm protecting you. From what? Jimin's face broke for the first time, completely and without control. From knowing that I agreed to be the villain so you wouldn't become the target. Nobody spoke. The sentence landed too heavily. Jimin wiped his face fast, embarrassed by his own tears, but they kept coming. They wanted a story, something believable, something fans could explain without asking deeper questions, so I gave them one. I acted distant. I picked fights. I let people think I was jealous, unstable, difficult. I let you think I was pushing you away because I couldn't stand you anymore. JUNGKOOK's eyes darkened. And tonight, Jimin looked up at him. Tonight I needed everyone to believe you hurt me. Jin made a sound of disbelief. Taehyung looked wounded. RM closed his eyes. J-Hope whispered, Jimin. JUNGKOOK's face emptied. That was worse than anger. Why? Jimin's voice barely came out. Because the person sending the messages said if the members chose your side, they would know the plan worked. They said you would be isolated, angry, careless. They said once you exploded, they could release the edited clips and make you look dangerous. JUNGKOOK stared at him, breathing shallowly. So you tried to make yourself look weak instead. Jimin gave a broken smile. I tried to make myself look like the problem, Suga said quietly. And someone inside helped them. Every eye turned to him. Suga nodded toward the manager. Because none of those details leave the building without access. The manager stood abruptly. That is enough. JUNGKOOK stepped forward, but RM blocked him with one arm. The manager looked at RM. You want the truth, fine. The company suspected an internal leak. We kept it quiet because if the members knew, trust would collapse. Suga's eyes were cold. Congratulations. The manager looked at Jimin then, and his voice softened in a way that made JUNGKOOK want to break something. Jimin agreed to cooperate until we found the source. JUNGKOOK turned slowly to Jimin. Cooperate. Jimin looked ashamed. The manager said he was not alone, he made a choice. JUNGKOOK's voice dropped. What choice? Jimin whispered. I gave them what they wanted. JUNGKOOK's face tightened. Meaning? Jimin looked at the floor. I let them record me saying I didn't trust you anymore. The room stopped breathing. JUNGKOOK did too. And in that silence, the injustice became clear. Jimin had not been betrayed by one person. He had been used by everyone who thought his pain was easier to manage than the truth. JUNGKOOK walked out. He did not slam the door. He did not shout. He simply turned, opened it, and left the waiting room with a silence so sharp it made Jimin stand before he even realized he was moving. JUNGKOOK! But his legs were still weak, and Jin caught his arm before he could fall again. No, sit down. Let go. You can barely stand. Hyung, let go. Jin's grip tightened. For once in your life, stop chasing the person you just broke and sit down. Jimin flinched. Jin regretted it immediately, but he did not take it back because maybe Jimin needed to hear something that hurt enough to keep him alive. J-Hope followed JUNGKOOK into the hallway, but RM stopped him with a look. Give him a second. J-Hope shook his head. A second is how we lose him. That sentence hit everyone because they all knew JUNGKOOK. When hurt, he did not always explode. Sometimes he disappeared into himself so completely that no one could reach him. Taehyung moved toward the door. "I'll go." Jimin looked at him. "No." Taehyung stopped. Jimin's voice cracked. "Please, not you." Taehyung looked wounded again, but this time there was anger under it. "Why? Because I know too much, because I saw the message." Jimin had no answer. Suga finally spoke. "Because JUNGKOOK needs someone who won't ask him to be calm." Everyone looked at him. Suga walked to the door. "So I'll go." RM nodded once. Suga left, and the room felt smaller without him. The manager was still standing, but RM's patience had ended. "Sit down and start from the beginning, not the company version, the truth." The manager looked exhausted. "Namjoon, you know I can't disclose every internal security detail." RM stepped closer. "You watched one of us pretend to faint because he thought that was the only way to protect another member. You do not get to hide behind internal security anymore." The manager looked at Jimin, but RM snapped. "Look at me." For a moment, the leader was not just the leader. He was a wall. The manager sat. "We first noticed irregular access after the private entrance leak. Logs showed someone using temporary credentials from inside the building. We narrowed it down to staff, contractors, and people with schedule access." Jin crossed his arms. "And instead of telling us, you let Jimin become bait." "No," the manager said quickly. "That was not the plan." Jimin laughed quietly. "It became the plan." The manager closed his eyes. "Jimin received the first threat before we could control it." RM turned to Jimin. "When?" Jimin's voice was flat now, like he had emptied himself out. "After the video outside my apartment almost leaked." Taehyung's face changed. "You told me that was nothing." "I told everyone that was nothing." J-Hope swallowed. "What did the first threat say?" Jimin stared at the water bottle in his hand. "It said JUNGKOOK looked happier leaving my place than he ever looked on camera, and that people would pay a lot to decide what that meant." The room went painfully quiet. Jin's face tightened with disgust. RM looked down. Taehyung's eyes filled with rage. J-Hope whispered, "That's sick." Jimin nodded slowly. "I thought if I ignored it, it would stop. Then they sent a clip of JUNGKOOK sleeping in the van." Jin's head snapped up. "What?" "Nothing bad," Jimin said quickly. "Just private." A moment nobody should have. He looked tired. His head was against the window. The message said, "We are closer than you think." RM's hands curled into fists. "Why did no one tell security immediately?" The manager answered. "Jimin did." Jimin looked away. "I told one person." Everyone turned toward the manager again. He raised a hand. "He reported it through me. We escalated it." Suga was not in the room, but his suspicion seemed to remain like a shadow. Jin said, "And yet it continued." "Because the source kept changing access points," the manager replied. "Whoever is doing this knows schedules before they are finalized." RM said quietly, "That means not random staff." The manager did not answer. That answer was enough. Taehyung suddenly remembered something and turned pale. "The dinner." Jimin's eyes lifted. Taehyung stared at him. "That dinner 2 weeks ago, you canceled last minute. You said you were sick." Jimin looked down again. "I wasn't sick." Taehyung's voice dropped. "That was the night I got followed." Jin turned to him. "You got followed." Taehyung swallowed. "I thought it was a fan, maybe two. I didn't tell anyone because nothing happened." Jimin's face twisted in pain. "Something almost happened." Taehyung stared. "What does that mean?" Jimin's breath shook. "They sent me your location. They said if I went to dinner with you, they would post it and make it look like we were meeting to plan against JUNGKOOK. They wanted a triangle. A fight, a reason for people to pick sides." Taehyung took one step back like the floor had moved under him. "So you ignored me that night because of that?" Jimin nodded. Taehyung laughed once, but it broke in the middle. "I thought you were mad at me." "I know. I asked you 3 times what I did wrong." "I know. And you let me think it was my fault." Jimin looked up, tears returning. "Yes." Taehyung's face hardened. "That's not protection, Jimin. That's cruelty with a pretty excuse." Jimin accepted it like a punishment. "I know." J-Hope stood, unable to sit still. "This is exactly what they wanted. Look at us, we're fighting each other." RM rubbed his forehead. "Then we stop giving them what they want." Jin looked at Jimin. "That starts with no more lies." Jimin nodded, but he did not look convinced. Because lies had become the only language that kept everyone moving. Lies had kept JUNGKOOK from becoming reckless. Lies had kept Taehyung away from danger. Lies had kept RM from carrying another burden. Lies had kept Jin and J-Hope from losing sleep over threats they could not see. But lies had also built a wall around Jimin so high that when he screamed, everyone thought he was acting. In the hallway, Suga found JUNGKOOK near the emergency stairs, standing with both hands against the wall, head lowered. He was not crying. That was what scared Suga. "You going to punch the wall or should I do it for you?" Suga asked. Jungkook did not move. Hyung. Yeah, Jungkook's voice was low. I believed him. Suga leaned against the opposite wall. We all did. No, I believed the worst version. I saw him pulling away and I got angry. I saw him being cruel and I answered with cruel. He was begging me to see something was wrong and I punished him for not saying it clearly. Suga was quiet for a moment. You're not responsible for a secret he chose to carry alone. Jungkook laughed, but it sounded empty. That's what people say when they don't want you to feel guilty. It's also true. Jungkook turned, eyes red now. He pretended to faint because he thought I would hate him enough to make it believable. Suga's face softened slightly. Do you? Jungkook's answer came too fast. No. Then quieter. I hate that he thought I could. Suga nodded. Then go tell him. Jungkook looked toward the waiting room. If I go back now, I'll ask him why he didn't trust me. You should. And if he says he was protecting me. Then tell him protection without trust is just another kind of abandonment. Jungkook closed his eyes. That sentence went straight in. In the waiting room, the manager's phone buzzed. Everyone looked at it. He hesitated. RM said, answer it on speaker. The manager's face tightened. It's not. Speaker, RM repeated. Slowly, the manager answered. A distorted voice came through before anyone could speak. You should have kept Jimin on the floor. He was more believable that way. Jimin went completely still. Jungkook and Suga heard it from the hallway because the door was still slightly open. Jungkook's blood went cold. The voice continued, calm and amused. Now that everyone knows, let's change the rules. In 10 minutes, Jungkook receives the real file. If he opens it, Jimin loses everything. If he doesn't, Jungkook will never know what Jimin traded for him. The call ended. Nobody moved. Then Jungkook appeared in the doorway, eyes locked on Jimin. His voice was quiet, but every person in the room heard the break inside it. What did you trade? Jimin looked at Jungkook standing in the doorway and knew the night had finally reached the point he had been running from. Not the message, not the threat, not the fake fainting. This was worse. Jungkook was asking the one question Jimin had built every lie to avoid. What did you trade? The manager stood first. Do not answer that. Jungkook's eyes did not leave Jimin. Sit down. The manager ignored him. Jimin, listen to me. Anything you say now can make this worse. Jimin laughed softly, empty and tired. Worse than this? The manager stepped closer. You made an agreement. Jungkook turned his head slowly. With who? The manager's jaw clenched. RM moved between them again, but this time not to stop Jungkook. This time to stop the manager from getting closer to Jimin. What agreement? The manager looked around at all of them, realizing the room had fully turned against him. It was a containment decision. Suga entered behind Jungkook and closed the door. That phrase already sounds like a crime. Jin's voice was shaking with anger. What did you make him do? We did not make him, the manager said. He volunteered. Jimin whispered, I was cornered. The manager's face flickered with guilt, but he forced it down. You had options. Jimin looked up at him, and for the first time that night, his fear turned into rage. Options were let them destroy Jungkook with edited recordings, let them drag Taehyung into a fake scandal, let them leak private conversations from Namjoon Hyung's studio, or give them something they wanted more. J-Hope covered his eyes. What did they want more? Jimin's lips trembled. He looked at Jungkook and his voice dropped until it was almost gone. Me. Jungkook's expression changed, not with confusion but with horror. What does that mean? Jimin tried to answer, but the words stuck. Manager spoke instead. They wanted Jimin to sign a private settlement acknowledging that he had caused internal conflict and emotional distress between members. It was not meant to become public. It was bait, a controlled document to trace the leak. RM stared at him. You put that in writing. A false document, the manager said quickly. Watermarked, traceable, monitored. Suga's eyes turned deadly. With Jimin's real signature. The manager said nothing. That silence was answer enough. Jungkook looked like the floor had disappeared beneath him. You signed something saying you heard us. Jimin nodded once. Jin stepped back, hand over his mouth. J-Hope whispered, why would they want that? RM answered, voice cold. Because if it leaks, it becomes proof. Even if it's false, even if we deny it, the public sees a signature. Taehyung looked at the manager with open disgust. You used him. We used a controlled strategy, the manager argued. To identify the person selling internal material. No, Suga said. You used the member most likely to blame himself and called it strategy. Jimin shut his eyes because that sentence hit too close to the truth. Jungkook stepped closer to him, slow, careful, like one sudden movement might break both of them. Is that what the file is? Jimin shook his head. No, Jungkook stopped. Then what is it? the manager said. "JUNGKOOK, don't." JUNGKOOK snapped. "I'm done hearing your voice." The room shook with the force of it. The manager went silent. JIMIN stared at JUNGKOOK, and there was no way out now. "The file is a video." JUNGKOOK's face hardened. "Of what?" JIMIN swallowed. "Of me." JUNGKOOK's voice became barely audible. "Doing what?" JIMIN's eyes filled. "Saying everything they told me to say." Taehyung frowned. "What things?" JIMIN looked at him, then at RM, Jin, J-Hope, Suga, and finally JUNGKOOK. "That I was tired of carrying the group's image. That JUNGKOOK was too dependent on me. That Taehyung made everything worse by interfering. That Namjoon Hyung cared more about control than us. That Jin Hyung only joked because he couldn't handle serious things. That Hobe Hyung pretended to be positive so nobody saw he was exhausted. That Yoongi Hyung disappeared emotionally when people needed him." Every sentence hit a different person. Every sentence found a private insecurity and dragged it into the light. Jimin looked destroyed saying them. "They wrote it, they made me read it. They said if I sounded convincing, they would delay the leaks. The company said the video would help track the blackmailer if it moved." His voice cracked. "But I saw the way the staff looked at me after, like maybe part of me meant it." The pain in the room became unbearable. Jin sat down heavily. J-Hope looked like he was trying not to fall apart. Taehyung's eyes had gone red. RM's face was unreadable, which meant he was hurt deeper than he wanted to show. Suga looked at the floor, jaw tight. JUNGKOOK was the only one still staring at Jimin. "Did you mean any of it?" Jimin answered immediately. "No." JUNGKOOK took another step. "Not even about me." Jimin's breath hitched. "Especially not about you." JUNGKOOK's eyes shone. "Then why did it work?" Jimin did not understand. JUNGKOOK's voice broke. "Why did I believe you wanted me gone?" That was the question under every question. Not what did you sign, not what did you say, not what did you trade. Why did I believe you could stop loving me like family, like home, like something unnamed but impossible to lose? Jimin covered his face with one hand. "Because I knew exactly where to hurt you." JUNGKOOK looked away, but Jimin forced himself to keep going. "I knew if I acted tired of you checking on me, you would step back. I knew if I laughed when you got worried, you would get angry instead of scared. I knew if I stood close to Taehyung after ignoring you, people would think jealousy. I knew if I said you were too much, you would pretend not to care." JUNGKOOK whispered. "You studied me just to break me." Jimin lowered his hand. His face was wet. "No, I loved you enough to know how to make you leave." The room went silent again, but this silence was no longer cold. It was wounded. JUNGKOOK looked at Jimin like he hated the sentence, hated the truth, hated that part of him understood it. Then his phone buzzed. Everyone heard it. One notification. One file received. JUNGKOOK slowly pulled the phone from his pocket. Jimin stood so fast Jin could not stop him this time. "Don't open it." JUNGKOOK stared at the screen. The sender had no name, only a blank icon and a file title, JIMIN Confession Final. Jimin reached for the phone, but JUNGKOOK lifted it out of reach. "Don't," Jimin begged. "Please." JUNGKOOK looked at him. "You don't get to beg me not to know after bleeding alone for months. It will hurt you." So did not knowing. "JUNGKOOK, did you watch it?" Jimin froze. JUNGKOOK's voice softened in the worst way. "Did you watch the video after they made you record it?" Jimin shook his head. "I couldn't." JUNGKOOK nodded slowly, tears finally gathering in his eyes. "Then we watch it together." Jimin's face went white. "No." JUNGKOOK stepped closer, lowering the phone between them. "Together, or I watch it alone and believe whatever pain it gives me." Jimin looked around the room. RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, and Taehyung were all watching him, not with anger now, but with something heavier. They had been hurt by his lies. They had been used by the threat. But they were still there. No one had left. No one had abandoned him. That made it harder, not easier. Jimin whispered, "If you hear me say those things, you'll never hear my real voice the same way again." JUNGKOOK leaned close, the same way he had when Jimin was pretending to be unconscious. "Then say something real before I press play." Jimin looked at him, shaking. Every secret had a door, every lie had a final lock, and JUNGKOOK had just placed his hand on it. Jimin's lips parted. For a second, everyone thought he would finally confess everything. But before he could speak, Taehyung's phone buzzed too. Then RM's, then Jin's, then J-Hope, then Suga's. 6 phones, 6 files, 6 different versions of Jimin's confession. And under every file was the same message. Choose which Jimin you believe. For a moment, nobody touched their phones. 6 screens glowed in the waiting room like 6 open wounds, each one offering a different version of the same person they thought they knew. Jimin stood in the middle of them, pale, breathing unevenly. Looking from RM to Jin, from Suga to J-Hope, from Taehyung to Jungkook, as if he could stop the damage just by standing there and absorbing it first. But damage did not wait for permission. Jungkook's phone buzzed again. This time it was not a file. It was a message. The first rule: no company, no police, no manager, only members. Break the rule and the world sees everything. Jungkook read it out loud, and the room changed. The fear became organized. The threat had rules now, and rules meant the person behind it was not panicking. They were watching. RM immediately turned to the ceiling corners, scanning the room with a leader's instinct, searching for cameras, hidden devices, anything that explained how the sender knew what was happening in real time. Jin moved closer to JIMIN without thinking, like his body had decided before his mind that JIMIN was not standing alone anymore. J-Hope went to the door and locked it. Taehyung stared at his own phone, jaw tight, then whispered, "Mine says something different." Everyone looked at him. He swallowed and read, "The second rule, choose privately. If anyone asks JIMIN what is true, another file goes public." Jin checked his screen, face turning colder. "Mine says the third rule, Jungkook gets the worst version last." Jungkook's eyes sharpened. Worst version? Suga finally unlocked his phone, read his message once, and gave a humorless smile. "Mine says the fourth rule, Yoongi already knows who should be blamed." Cute. RM looked at his screen last. "Mine says, leader, if you try to fix this like a leader, you lose like a leader." J-Hope's hand shook as he opened his own. "Mine says, smile for them, Hoseok, you are always better when you pretend." The silence after that was different. It was personal. The blackmailer had not sent random threats. They had studied them. They knew where to press. They knew exactly how to turn private fear into public weapon. Jimin looked around the room, and the guilt on his face became unbearable. "This is why I didn't tell you." Jungkook turned to him. "No, this is why you should have told us sooner." Jimin's expression tightened. "And what would you have done? Stayed calm, let them threaten everyone, and just breathe through it?" Jungkook stepped closer, voice low. "I would have stood next to you. That would have made you the target. I was already the target." "Not like this. You don't get to decide that alone." Their words hit fast, not loud, but full of old pain. RM raised one hand. "Stop, both of you." This time they listened, not because the hurt was gone, but because the enemy had entered the room through their phones, and suddenly every second mattered. RM placed his phone on the table without opening the file. "Nobody plays anything yet." Jungkook looked at him. "Why?" "Because the files are bait. Different versions, different emotional triggers, may be edited differently. The point is to make us react alone, so we don't." Taehyung nodded slowly. "They want us to choose which Jimin we believe. Then we choose the real one sitting in front of us," J-Hope said, voice shaking but firm. Jimin looked at him like that sentence hurt more than an insult. Jin took the water bottle from Jimin's crushed grip and set it down. "You hear that? We're not watching 6 files to decide if you deserve us." Suga glanced toward the manager, who had gone quiet in the corner. "But we do need to decide what to do with him." The manager looked up sharply. "I'm on your side." "Then your side has terrible timing," Suga replied. RM turned to him. "You heard the rule, no company, no police, no manager." The manager stood. "You are not seriously considering following instructions from a blackmailer." "We're considering why the blackmailer specifically excluded you," Jungkook said. The manager's mouth pressed into a hard line. "Because they want you to distrust the only people equipped to help." Suga tilted his head. "Or because you're one of the people feeding them information." The manager snapped, "Enough." Jimin flinched at the sudden anger. Jungkook saw it and moved immediately, placing himself slightly in front of him. The manager noticed, and something bitter passed through his face. "This is exactly what they want." Jungkook reacts, Jimin hides, the rest of you take sides. RM's voice cut in. "Then stop giving us reasons to doubt you. You said the signed statement was traceable. Who handled it?" "Security legal team." "Names, Namjoon." "Names," the manager hesitated. That hesitation was the loudest thing in the room. Suga stepped closer. "You don't remember the names of people who handled a document capable of destroying one of your artists." "I remember," the manager said. "Then say them." The manager looked at Jimin. Jimin's eyes widened slightly, almost invisible, but Jungkook caught it. "Why do you keep looking at him before answering?" Jungkook asked. The manager said nothing. Taehyung suddenly stepped forward, voice cold in a way that did not sound like him. "Because Jimin knows one of the names." Jimin closed his eyes. RM turned. "Jimin." Jimin shook his head once. "Don't." Jin's voice softened. "Who?" Jimin opened his eyes, and his voice came out small. "Someone we trusted." That sentence landed heavily, but not with surprise. They had all known deep down that the leak had to come from somewhere close. Still, hearing Jimin say it made the walls feel nearer. J-Hope whispered, "Staff." Jimin nodded. "More than staff." Suga's expression sharpened. "A liaison," the manager snapped. "Jimin, stop." Jungkook turned on him so fast the manager actually took one step back. "You don't tell him what to do anymore." RM held the silence for a long second, then spoke with calm authority. "We are going to do this carefully. No accusations without proof. No opening files alone, no leaving the room alone, no more secrets between members." Jimin laughed once weakly. "That last one might kill us faster than the blackmailer." RM looked at him. "Maybe, but secrets are how they hunted you." Jimin looked down. The word hunted stayed in the room. It fit too well. Jungkook's phone buzzed a third time. Everyone froze. He read it and his face went still. The hunter chooses the next rule. Send Jimin out alone or the youngest hears what he said about him. Jin's face twisted. "Absolutely not." Taehyung moved closer to the door. "No one is sending him anywhere." But Jimin had already gone quiet in that dangerous way. Jungkook looked at him and knew. "Don't even think about it." Jimin lifted his eyes. "If they want me, maybe I can buy time." Jungkook's voice dropped. "You take one step toward that door and I swear I will carry you back myself." Jimin's mouth trembled. "You can't protect me from everything." Jungkook stepped closer. "Maybe not, but I can stop you from offering yourself like payment." Jimin looked at him, angry tears gathering. "You think I wanted to? I think you got used to it." That hurt. Everyone saw it. Jimin stepped back as if Jungkook had touched a bruise. "You don't know what I got used to." Jungkook's eyes softened for half a second, then hardened again because softness would make Jimin run. "Then tell me." Jimin looked at the locked door. The room waited. His shoulders shook once. "I got used to messages at 3 in the morning. I got used to checking mirrors and windows. I got used to smiling during rehearsals while wondering which staff member knew what I wore yesterday. I got used to deleting drafts where I almost told you everything." Jungkook's face changed. "You wrote to me." Jimin swallowed. "Every night." Jungkook's voice became quieter. "Why didn't you send them?" Jimin looked at him and the answer was simple enough to destroy both of them. "Because every time I typed your name, they sent another photo." Nobody breathed. Jimin's tears slipped, but he did not wipe them. "They knew when I wanted to tell you. They knew when I hesitated. They were close enough to punish the thought before it became action." Suga's eyes went dark. "That means device access." RM nodded slowly. "Or someone watching his communications." Taehyung looked at the manager. "And you still let him keep using the same phone." The manager looked ashamed now, but not enough. "We replaced devices twice." Jimin laughed bitterly. "And the messages still came." Jungkook held out his hand. "Give me your phone." Jimin looked at him. "Why?" "Because if they used your fear as a leash, I want to see the leash." Jimin hesitated, then slowly gave it to him. Jungkook took it carefully, like it was evidence and heartbreak at the same time. The lock screen lit up under his touch. The wallpaper was simple. A blurry photo from a late-night rehearsal, 7 shadows on the practice room floor. Jungkook stared at it for 1 second too long, then looked away. "Password." Jimin gave a sad smile. "You know it." Jungkook did. That was another wound. He typed it in without thinking. Phone opened. No new messages appeared. Suga moved beside him. "Airplane mode now." Jungkook did it. RM placed all 6 phones on the table. "Same for everyone, disconnect. We control what enters this room." Jin looked at the manager. "Yours too." The manager hesitated. Jin's voice became sharp. "Now." The manager handed over his phone. Suga took it before anyone else could, turned on airplane mode, then slipped it into his own pocket. "For safety." The manager glared. "That's not yours." Suga's smile was thin. Neither was Jimin's pain, but everyone borrowed it anyway. The words shut the room down. Then from outside the door there was a knock, not loud, not urgent, 3 taps. Everyone turned. The knock came again, 3 taps, a pause, then 2. Jimin's face drained of color. Jungkook saw it. "You know that knock." Jimin whispered, "That's how the messages started." RM moved toward the door, but Jungkook caught his arm. "No, we don't open it." The voice outside was soft, familiar, and terrifying because of that. "Jimin SSI, it's me. I was told you needed help." Taehyung went rigid. Jin whispered, "Who is that?" Jimin stared at the door like it had become a memory he wanted to burn. "The liaison." Jungkook's hand slowly curled into a fist. The hunter was no longer hiding behind a screen. The hunter was standing outside their door. The person outside knocked again, still polite, still controlled, as if the room behind the door was not full of people whose trust had just been ripped open. "Jimin SSI, I brought the medicine you requested." Jimin's eyes closed and his face showed something worse than fear, recognition, shame. Jungkook turned to him, his anger sharpening into focus. Medicine? Jimin shook his head. I didn't request anything. The manager stood too quickly. Let me handle this. Suga stepped in front of him. You're not handling anything. RM lifted a finger to his lips, then pointed at the side wall. There was a small storage closet attached to the waiting room, used for extra chairs and camera stands. He gestured for Jimin to move there. Jimin immediately understood and shook his head. Jungkook leaned close. For once, don't argue. I'm not hiding. You're not hiding, you're stopping them from seeing your face. Jimin stared at him, and there it was again, the old instinct to resist anything that sounded like being protected. But this time, he saw the difference. Jungkook was not pushing him away from the truth. He was pulling the truth closer without letting it hit Jimin first. Jin touched Jimin's shoulder. Go! Jimin finally moved, stepping into the closet with J-Hope beside him. J-Hope did not ask permission. He went with him because he understood panic better than most people knew. Taehyung switched off the room's main light, leaving only the dim lamp near the couch. RM looked at everyone, then opened the door just a narrow gap. The liaison stood outside with a small paper bag in one hand and a staff badge hanging neatly from her neck. Her name was Minseo. She had worked with them for years. She had coordinated rooms, meals, private schedules, quiet exits, birthday surprises, emergency changes. She had watched them exhausted, hungry, sick, laughing, half asleep, unguarded. That was the worst part. She had not been a stranger. RM's face did not change. Why are you here? Minseo blinked, then gave a worried smile. Manager Nim called and said Jimin wasn't feeling well. Inside the room, the manager's face went pale. Suga looked at him slowly. RM kept his voice neutral. When? 10 minutes ago. He's been in this room 10 minutes. Her smile flickered, only slightly. Then maybe just before. RM opened the door a little wider, but not enough for her to see the whole room. He didn't call you. Minseo lowered her eyes to the bag. I must have misunderstood. Who sent you? She looked up. The smile was still there, but it had lost warmth. I'm here to help. Jungkook moved into view then. Minseo's eyes shifted to him, and for 1 second something passed across her face. Satisfaction. It was gone quickly, but Jungkook saw it. Where is Jimin? She asked. Jungkook's voice was quiet. Why do you want to know? Minseo's smile tightened. Because he needs to take this before he gets worse. Jin stepped forward. What is it? Just something for anxiety and dizziness. Jin held out his hand. Give it to me. Minseo hesitated. There it was, the first crack. It has his name on it. Then give it to me and I'll give it to him. I should explain the dose. I'm older than him, not stupid. The politeness in Jin's voice was gone now. Minseo looked at RM, then Jungkook, then the manager behind Suga. Her eyes stopped there. Manager Nim. The manager did not answer. Suga smiled coldly. He's having a quiet night. RM held out his hand. The bag. For a moment, Minseo seemed to calculate whether refusing would expose too much. Then she handed it over. RM took it without looking away from her. Thank you, you can go. Minseo did not move. I should see Jimin first. Jungkook stepped fully into the doorway. No. The word was calm, but Minseo's face changed. She looked at Jungkook like he had become a problem she had expected but still disliked. You're very protective tonight. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. You say that like you've been watching. She smiled. Everyone watches you, Jungkook SSI. The sentence was harmless on the surface. Underneath, it was a knife. Jungkook leaned slightly closer. Not everyone gets close enough to send photos from inside the van. Minseo's smile finally disappeared. The hallway seemed to go silent around her. RM did not move, but his whole body hardened. Jin's hand tightened around the paper bag. Suga watched her pupils, her breathing, the way her fingers twitched at her side. Minseo recovered fast. I don't know what you mean. Good, Jungkook said. Then you won't mind if security checks your access logs. I thought the rule was no company, she said softly. Everyone froze. There it was, not a confession, but close enough to burn. RM's voice dropped. What rule? Minseo's eyes flicked to him, and for the first time the mask slipped enough to show annoyance. You always ask questions like the answer will make you safe. Taehyung moved behind Jungkook, his face pale with anger. It was you. Minseo looked at him and smiled again, but this one was cruel. Taehyung SSI, you were always too easy to move. One ignored dinner and you looked like a wounded puppy for 2 weeks. Taehyung flinched despite himself. Jin stepped forward, but RM blocked him. Jungkook's voice turned dark. Say his name again like that. Minseo ignored him. Her gaze went past them, searching the dim room. Jimin is here, I know he is. From the closet, Jimin's breath caught. J-Hope took his hand immediately and squeezed hard, silently telling him not to move. Minseo tilted her head toward the sound. Jungkook stepped into the hallway and pulled the door behind him halfway, blocking the view. "You're done." Minseo looked up at him. "No, I'm not. None of you understand. I kept worse things from happening." Jungkook laughed once, cold and disbelieving. "You blackmailed him." "I controlled him." The words came out before she could soften them. RM's face changed. Suga's eyes sharpened like he had just heard the exact sentence he needed. Minseo realized the mistake and swallowed, but it was too late. Jungkook looked like he might move, so RM stepped beside him. "Why?" RM asked. "Money." Minseo's jaw tightened. "You always think betrayal is about money because that's easier to understand." Jin opened the paper bag behind them and looked inside. His expression darkened. "There's no prescription label." Suga took the bag from him, looked at the pills, then at Minseo. "What were you trying to give him?" Minseo's eyes flickered. "Something to calm him down." Jin's voice became ice. "Or make him look unstable." Minseo said nothing. That silence answered more than enough. Taehyung whispered, "You wanted him on camera like that." Minseo looked at him with sudden irritation. "He was supposed to stay down longer. He ruined the timing by waking up." From inside the closet, Jimin covered his mouth. J-Hope's eyes filled with horror. Jungkook heard enough. He stepped forward, but RM caught his shoulder. "No." Jungkook's voice shook with restraint. "She drugged him," Minseo scoffed. "Don't be dramatic. He never took anything. He's too suspicious now." "Now," Suga repeated. Minseo went silent again. RM caught it. "How long?" Minseo's face hardened. "You should be asking what he gave me." Jungkook stopped. The hallway seemed to tilt. "What?" Minseo looked toward the room, toward where she knew Jimin was listening. "Tell them, Jimin. Tell them how this started. Tell them why I had proof in the first place." Jimin stepped out before anyone could stop him. His face was pale, his eyes wet, but his voice was clear when he said, "Because I trusted you." Jungkook turned. "Jimin, don't." But Jimin walked to the doorway and faced Minseo himself. "I told you I was scared someone was following Jungkook. I showed you the messages because you said you could help. I gave you my phone because you said security needed to copy the evidence. That's how you got everything." Minseo smiled with quiet triumph. "Not everything." Jimin's face tightened. She leaned closer, voice soft enough to sound intimate and cruel enough to poison the air. "You gave me the first secret willingly." Jungkook's eyes moved to Jimin. "What secret?" Jimin did not answer. Minseo's smile widened. "That's the real file, Jungkook SSI, not the confession, not the fake statement, the first secret." Jimin looked like he might collapse for real this time. Jungkook reached for him, but Jimin stepped away. That hurt more than the distance itself. RM spoke, calm but dangerous. "Minseo, you're going to leave now." She looked at him. "Or what?" "You call security and break the first rule. You call police and make everything public. You lock me in the hallway and prove you're scared." Suga stepped closer, holding up the manager's phone. "No, we let you walk away with no phone." For the first time, Minseo's confidence cracked. "What?" Suga smiled. "You came here because you thought you controlled the devices, but you looked at his phone before you looked at Jimin. You need this one." The manager's face went blank. Minseo's eyes betrayed her. Just a flash, but enough. RM turned slowly toward the manager. "Your phone," the manager whispered. "I didn't know." Suga's voice was quiet. "I believe that, but she did." Minseo stepped back. Jungkook moved to block the hall. Taehyung blocked the other side. Jin held the paper bag like evidence. J-Hope stood behind Jimin, one hand firm at his back. For the first time that night, Minseo was the one inside the trap. But then she smiled again, smaller, colder. "You can keep the phone." The next rule already started. Jungkook's phone buzzed on the table inside the room, even though it was on airplane mode. Everyone turned. Minseo whispered, "The hunter never needed your signal." And before anyone could stop her, the lights in the hallway went out. Darkness did not fall gently. It slammed into the hallway and swallowed the waiting room with it. For 1 second, everyone moved at once. Jin cursed under his breath. Taehyung grabbed the doorframe. RM reached for his phone before remembering it was on the table. J-Hope pulled Jimin back from the doorway with both hands. Jungkook moved toward Minseo, but she was already gone, her footsteps cutting sharply down the hall. "Don't chase her alone," RM shouted. Jungkook stopped only because Jimin said his name. Not loudly, not dramatically, just Jungkook, broken enough to pull him back from instinct. The emergency lights flickered on after a few seconds, painting everything in a dim red glow. The hallway looked wrong under that light, like a place from a nightmare they had rehearsed without knowing. Jungkook turned toward Jimin. "Are you okay?" Jimin almost laughed. The question was impossible now. "No." The honesty stopped Jungkook for a moment. Jimin looked at him, and for once he did not pretend. No, I'm not okay. Jungkook's anger folded into something raw. He stepped closer, but this time he stopped before touching him. He was learning the new rule too, protect him without trapping him. Then stay where I can see you. Jimin nodded once. It was not surrender. It was trust, fragile and unfinished. RM took control again. We need lights, exits, and proof. Yoongi, the manager's phone. Jin, keep the bag. Hobai, stay with Jimin. Taehyung with me. Taehyung shook his head. I want Minseo. RM looked at him sharply. That's why you're with me. Taehyung's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Suga had already powered the manager's phone back on, ignoring the manager's protest. There's a hidden app. The manager stepped forward. What? Suga held up the screen. Not visible normally, disguised as a calendar widget. It's been syncing. RM moved beside him. Syncing what? Access logs, room assignments. Internal messages, maybe audio. Jimin went still. Jungkook saw it. Audio? Suga did not answer right away, and that was answer enough. Jimin's face emptied. So she heard everything. J-Hope gripped his shoulder. Not everything. Jimin looked at him with a sad expression. Enough. Jungkook turned back to the manager. How does a liaison get an app on your phone? The manager looked genuinely shaken now. I don't know. Suga's eyes stayed on the screen. Maybe he didn't install it. Maybe someone borrowed it. Maybe someone updated his schedule. Maybe someone asked for a verification code while he was distracted. The manager lowered himself into a chair like his legs had weakened. Minseo handled my calendar when I was in meetings. Jin stared at him. You gave her access. She was trusted. Taehyung's voice came from the doorway, bitter and shaking. That word is starting to sound stupid. Nobody corrected him. Suga tapped quickly through the hidden app, then frowned. It's not just sending data outward, it's receiving triggers. RM leaned closer. Meaning the messages are automated based on what happens. Keywords, movement, maybe device proximity. That's why it buzzed on airplane mode. The command was already stored. Jungkook looked at the phones on the table. So the files are already here. Suga nodded. Probably downloaded before we disconnected. Jimin whispered. Then she planned this. RM's expression hardened. Not alone. Everyone looked at him. Power cut, internal access, device compromise, old private footage, edited files, legal document tracking. This is bigger than one liaison. The manager looked up slowly. There was a contractor. Suga's eyes narrowed. Now you remember, the manager swallowed. A temporary security consultant brought in after the first leak. Minseo recommended them. RM's face turned cold. Name, Kang Doyeon. Jimin's head snapped up. Jungkook saw it immediately. You know him. Jimin's mouth opened, then closed. Taehyung stared at him. Jimin. Jimin stepped back. No, not like that. Jungkook's voice was controlled, but barely. What does that mean? Jimin pressed his fingers to his temple. He was the one who told me the threats were real. He said he was investigating. He said if I cooperated, he could catch the leak. Jin's face went pale with anger. So the investigator was part of it. Suga said, or the investigator created it. RM's eyes lowered as the shape of the trap became clearer. They made Jimin report fear to the person causing it. J-Hope whispered, That's cruel. That's efficient, Suga corrected darkly. Jungkook looked at Jimin and his voice softened despite the rage building behind it. What was the first secret? Jimin went completely still. The others did too. The question had returned, and this time there was no Minseo to interrupt, no phone buzz to save him. Jimin looked at the red-lit room, at the 6 people who had been pushed into this nightmare because he tried to keep them outside it. It wasn't about romance, he said quietly, as if answering a rumor before it could become one. It wasn't something dirty, it wasn't something illegal, it was just personal. Jungkook nodded slowly. Okay. Jimin looked surprised by the gentleness. Jungkook continued, then say it as personal, not as evidence. Jimin's eyes filled again. After the apartment video almost leaked, I panicked. I thought if people saw you leaving, they would twist it, and you would get hurt because of me. I told Minseo that you had been coming over because I couldn't sleep. Jungkook's face changed. The room went very quiet. Jimin forced himself to keep speaking. I told her you stayed on the couch sometimes, that you checked if I ate, that you sat outside the bathroom door when I got panic attacks because I didn't want anyone to see me shaking. Jungkook closed his eyes. The memory hurt because it had been private, not scandalous, not dramatic, just care. It had belonged to them. Jimin's voice broke. I told her you were the only one who knew how bad it got, and she recorded me saying it. Jin looked away, visibly pained. J-Hope's eyes shone. Taehyung's anger softened into grief. RM stared at the floor, absorbing the depth of Jimin's isolation. Suga said nothing, but his hand tightened around the phone. Jungkook opened his eyes. That's the first secret, Jimin nodded. They used it to build everything. They said if the public heard it, people would say I was using you emotionally, or you were controlling me, or we were hiding something. They said even love between friends can be made ugly if you cut it into pieces. Jungkook looked devastated, but not disgusted. That was what broke Jimin. He had expected anger, maybe humiliation, maybe distance. But Jungkook only looked like someone had stolen a memory from both of them and sold it back as a threat. You should have told me, Jungkook whispered. Jimin nodded. I know. No, you don't. You think telling me would burden me, but you carrying it alone made me useless. Jimin flinched. Jungkook stepped closer. Do you know what that felt like? Watching you stop needing me overnight? Watching you flinch when I asked if you slept? Watching you laugh at me in front of everyone so I'd stop trying? Jimin's tears fell silently. I thought if you hated me, you'd be safer. Jungkook's voice cracked. I was never safer without you. The sentence hit the room with full force. J-Hope lowered his head. Jin wiped his eyes angrily like he was offended by his own tears. Taehyung looked at the floor. Suga pretended to focus on the phone, but even he stopped tapping for a second. RM let the silence breathe because some truths needed space. Then the manager's phone vibrated in Suga's hand. He looked down. A new message appeared inside the hidden app. The prey confessed. Begin phase 2. Suga read it out loud. Before anyone could react, every screen on the table lit up at once. Not with Jimin's files this time, with live camera feeds from inside the building. Empty hallways, practice rooms, elevators, the lobby, the emergency stairs. And then one feed showed Minseo standing beside a man in a black cap near the service exit. Kang Doyeon. He looked directly into the camera, as if he knew they were watching. Then he raised one hand and held up a small drive. Jungkook stepped closer to the screen. The man smiled and mouthed one sentence without sound. Jimin understood it before anyone else did. Come get it. The service exit was on the other side of the building, past 2 rehearsal halls, 1 staff corridor, and a stairwell that always smelled faintly of dust and coffee. Under normal lights, it was an ordinary route. Under emergency red with a blackmailer waiting at the end, it felt like a tunnel built for betrayal. RM wanted to wait, gather evidence, lock down the room, call trusted security outside the compromised chain. Jungkook wanted to move immediately. Taehyung wanted to move faster than Jungkook. Jin wanted everyone to stop acting like they were in an action movie and remember that one of them had almost been drugged. J-Hope wanted Jimin far away from all of it. Suga wanted the hidden app copied before it could erase itself. Jimin wanted the drive. That was the dangerous part. No, Jungkook said before Jimin even spoke. Jimin looked at him. You don't know what I was going to say. You were going to say you should go because he wants you. Jimin's jaw tightened. He has the original. Then we get it without handing you over. That's not how this works. Jungkook stepped closer. That is exactly how this works now. Jimin looked at RM. Hyung, if that drive has the raw recordings, the fake files, the signed document, everything, then this ends tonight. RM's expression was pained but firm. Or it escalates tonight. Suga looked up from the phone. Both can be true. Jin snapped. Not helpful. Suga ignored him. The app has a remote wipe timer, 10 minutes. Everyone turned. If the timer hits 0, the data on this phone deletes. Maybe the drive too, maybe not. I can try to copy it, but I need a laptop. The manager spoke quickly. There's one in the conference room. Suga looked at him. Convenient. The manager's voice cracked with frustration. I'm trying to help. RM studied him. Then help by staying here with Jin and Hoseok. Jin blinked. Excuse me. RM turned to him. Keep Jimin here. Jimin immediately said no. Jungkook said yes. Jimin glared at him. You are not deciding for me. Jungkook's voice was low. And you are not walking toward the person who controlled your fear for months. He controlled it because I let him. No, Jungkook's anger flared. Don't you dare make their manipulation sound like your weakness. Jimin went quiet. That sentence reached something deep. J-Hope stepped between them gently. Jimin, listen, let us carry some of it now. Jimin looked at him and his defenses weakened because Hobai did not say it like a command. He said it like an offer. Taehyung came closer, his voice rough. You said you hurt me to protect me. Fine, now let me be angry at the right person. Jimin looked at him. No, I'm not forgiving you yet. The honesty made Jimin inhale sharply. Taehyung's eyes were wet but steady. But I'm not leaving you with them either. RM nodded once. Here, what happens? Yoongi copies the app data. Jin and Hobai stay with Jimin and the manager. Taehyung and I check the conference room route. Jungkook stays here. Jungkook's head snapped toward him. No, RM looked at him. You are emotionally compromised. Jungkook laughed once in disbelief. All of us are. You more than anyone. Jungkook stepped closer. If you think I'm staying behind while Doyeon holds that drive, he wants you angry, RM cut in. He wants footage of you charging down a hallway. He wants the version of you he can sell as dangerous. Jungkook stopped. The truth hit him hard because it sounded exactly like the plan Jimin had described. Isolate Jungkook, anger him, record him, use it. Jimin looked at him softly. That's why I tried to become the villain first. Jungkook turned to him, pain flashing across his face. Don't say that like it was right. It was. Jimin's voice shook. But I was scared. Jungkook's anger broke for 1 second. I know. That was the worst part. He knew now. He understood too much to only be angry. RM softened his voice, but not his decision. Jungkook, stay with Jimin. That's not punishment, that's strategy. If Doyeon wants to pull either of you into the hallway, we deny him both. Suga nodded. And if something happens here, Jungkook is the fastest. Jin muttered, finally, one practical sentence. Jungkook looked torn apart by the choice. The old Jungkook would have chased. The hurt Jungkook wanted to chase. But the Jungkook who had whispered to Jimin on the floor, the one who knew Jimin was awake and scared and protecting him, understood the trap. He looked at Jimin. Stay in this room. Jimin gave a faint, broken smile. You too. I mean it. So do I. For 1 second, they looked like they were standing on opposite sides of the same locked door. Then RM, Suga, and Taehyung moved. The moment they left, the waiting room felt too quiet. Jin placed the paper bag on the far table like it was poison, because maybe it was. J-Hope made Jimin sit on the couch. Jungkook stayed near the door, arms crossed, every muscle ready. The manager sat in the chair under Jin's watchful glare, looking smaller than he had before. Nobody trusted him fully, but nobody had the luxury to decide what to do with that yet. Jimin looked at Jungkook's back. You hate standing still. Jungkook did not turn. You hate being protected. I don't hate it. You fight it like it offends you. Jimin lowered his eyes. Because protection usually comes with a price. Jungkook turned then. Not from me. Jimin's face shifted. Jungkook walked closer, but slowly. From me it comes with yelling maybe, and bad timing, and me being stupid because I'm scared, but not a price. Jimin's lips trembled. I didn't know how to ask. Jungkook sat across from him, leaning forward, elbows on knees. Then don't ask perfectly. Just don't disappear and call it love. Jin and J-Hope looked away, giving them the smallest privacy possible in a room full of broken trust. Jimin whispered, when you said I should stop acting like everyone owed me protection, I thought maybe you finally believed what I was trying to make you believe. Jungkook's face tightened with regret. I said it because I was hurt. I know. No, Jimin, I said it because I wanted you to hurt too. Jimin swallowed. Jungkook forced himself to keep going. That's the part I have to own. You lied, you pushed me, but I chose the sentence. I chose where to cut. Jimin looked at him for a long time. It worked. Jungkook's eyes shone. I know. And that was the first honest apology between them, even though neither had said the word yet. In the conference room, Suga connected the manager's phone to the laptop while RM watched the hallway and Taehyung checked the camera feeds. The copy progress moved painfully slow. 6 minutes left. Then 5. Then 4. Taehyung suddenly leaned toward one feed. Hayoung! RM turned. The service exit camera was empty now. Minseo and Doyeon were gone. On the floor where they had stood was the small drive. Alone, waiting, Suga looked up. That's too easy. Taehyung whispered, or it's not the trap. RM's phone, still disconnected from network but loaded with the file, lit up by itself. A video began playing without sound. Jimin, sitting in a plain room, eyes swollen, saying something to the camera. RM froze. Suga looked up. Taehyung's face went pale. The audio suddenly returned, loud enough to fill the conference room. Jimin's recorded voice said, if Jungkook finds out the truth, tell him I chose this before he could choose me. Back in the waiting room, Jungkook's phone lit up too. The same video, the same face, the same impossible sentence. Jimin stood, horrified. No! Jungkook slowly looked from the screen to him. And before Jimin could explain, the video continued with the line that changed every rule again. Because the person who gave them access was me. The video froze on Jimin's face, but his voice kept echoing in the room long after the sentence ended. Because the person who gave them access was me. Jungkook did not move. Nobody did. Even the air felt like it had stopped because that one line was too ugly, too impossible, too perfectly designed to destroy the fragile trust they had just started rebuilding. Jimin stood in front of the couch, eyes wide, shaking his head before anyone even asked him anything. No. No, I didn't say it like that. That's edited. Jungkook, look at me. Please look at me. Jungkook was looking at him, but not the way Jimin wanted. His eyes were full of pain, confusion, and a terrible effort to stay still. It was the look of someone trying not to believe what he had just heard, but also trying not to be stupid for trusting too easily. Jin snatched the phone from the table and stared at the screen, rewinding with trembling fingers. J-Hope moved closer to Jimin, but even he looked shaken. The manager stood halfway from his chair, then sat back down when Jungkook's eyes cut toward him. "Say it," Jungkook whispered. Jimin's breath caught. "Say what?" "Say that line is fake." Jimin answered instantly. "It's fake." Jungkook's jaw tightened. "Not edited around something true." Jimin froze, and that half-second hesitation was all the blackmailer needed. Jungkook saw it. Jin saw it. J-Hope saw it. The manager looked away. Jimin's face collapsed with panic. "No, listen, I need to explain." Jungkook laughed once, hollow and devastated. "That means it is true somewhere. It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" Jimin pressed both hands against his head like he was trying to hold himself together. "I gave them access to my phone, yes, but I thought it was security. I thought I was handing evidence to people who could protect us. I didn't know Minseo and Doyeon were part of it. I didn't know they were building a trap from the inside." Jungkook's eyes lowered. "So the sentence isn't fake." Jimin stepped toward him. "The meaning is fake." "Jimin." The way Jungkook said his name made him stop. It was not angry. It was worse. It was tired. "Do you understand how many times tonight you've said something was fake, and then we found out there was a real wound underneath it?" Jimin's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Jin looked between them, face tight with fear because he could feel Jungkook slipping away emotionally. "Jungkook, don't let the video decide before he speaks." Jungkook did not look at Jin. "I'm trying." His voice cracked on the last word. That broke something in Jimin. He took one step back instead of forward because he finally understood that chasing Jungkook too hard would look exactly like hiding the truth. In the conference room, RM, Suga, and Taehyung were watching the same nightmare unfold from another screen. Taehyung had both hands on the edge of the table, knuckles pale. "That's edited, it has to be." Suga did not answer right away. His eyes were on the audio wave, on the sudden jump in the video frame, on the unnatural pause before the sentence. "It's edited," he said finally. Taehyung breathed out. RM did not. "But from real footage." Suga nodded grimly. He cut several statements together. "The mouth movement doesn't match the last part cleanly. The audio has a tonal shift." Taehyung turned toward the door. "Then we tell them." Suga grabbed his sleeve. "Wait, why?" "Because the file triggered at the same time in both rooms. They wanted us separated when we heard it." RM's eyes sharpened. "They wanted Jungkook to react before we could verify." Taehyung's face hardened. "Then he might be doing exactly what they want right now." RM stood. "We go back." Suga looked at the laptop. "The copy is at 83%. RM's body tensed with the decision. Leave the evidence or leave Jimin and Jungkook alone with the lie. Taehyung looked at him. "Hayoung." RM hated this. He hated that every option had a cost. "Yoongi, stay with the copy, Taehyung with me." Suga nodded once, but before RM could reach the door, the laptop screen flashed. The copy stopped. A new message appeared across the hidden app. "The twist is not that Jimin lied. The twist is who taught him how." Suga went still. RM turned back slowly. Taehyung whispered, "What does that mean?" Suga looked toward the waiting room, and for the first time that night, he looked genuinely afraid. Back inside, Jungkook's phone played another clip automatically. This one was older. The timestamp showed 3 months earlier. Jimin was sitting across from Kang Doyeon in a small office, shoulders tense, eyes tired. Doyeon's face was mostly off camera, but his voice was clear. "If you want Jungkook safe, you need to make him stop looking at you like you are his responsibility." Jimin's recorded voice answered, small and desperate. "How?" Doyeon said. "You know him best. Use that." The video cut. The room went silent. Jimin looked sick. Jungkook slowly lowered the phone. "He taught you." Jimin whispered. "He manipulated me." "He told you what to do, but you knew where to hit." Jimin's eyes filled. "Yes." It was the first answer that did not try to soften the edge. "Yes." He had known. Yes. He had used that knowledge. Yes. He had chosen every word that made Jungkook step back, every cold smile, every cruel dismissal, every moment of distance carefully designed to look natural. The blackmailer had given him the strategy, but Jimin had supplied the map of Jungkook's heart. Jungkook's face tightened like he could not breathe through the pain. "When I asked if you ate, you said I was acting like your babysitter." Jimin nodded, tears falling. "Because Doyeon said if I made you feel unwanted enough, you would stop coming. When I waited outside the studio, you left with Taehyung through the back." Because Mincio said there were cameras near the front. When I asked why you didn't tell me about the panic attacks anymore, you laughed. Jimin covered his mouth, but he forced the truth out anyway. Because if I cried, you would stay. Jungkook looked away sharply. Jin closed his eyes. J-Hope's tears finally spilled, silent and angry. This is torture, J-Hope whispered. This is what they did to him. Jungkook's voice was low. And what he did to me. Jimin flinched, but he did not deny it. That mattered, maybe not enough, but it mattered. The door opened and RM entered with Taehyung, both breathing hard. The video is edited, RM said immediately. The final line was cut together. Jungkook did not look relieved. I know, RM stopped. Jungkook looked at Jimin. But the pain isn't edited. Taehyung looked from one to the other, and something in his face softened because he finally understood the real fight. This was not about whether Jimin was guilty or innocent. It was about whether protection could become betrayal even when love was behind it. Jimin wiped his face with both hands. I can't undo it. Jungkook nodded once. No, but I can stop hiding. Jungkook's eyes lifted. Jimin turned to RM, Jin, Suga, who had just appeared at the doorway with the laptop under his arm, J-Hope, and Taehyung. His voice shook, but he did not look away this time. I gave Mincio my phone. I gave Doyeon my fear. I signed the fake statement. I recorded the confession. I pushed Jungkook away on purpose. I hurt Taehyung to make him stop asking questions. I ignored Hobi Hayoung when he knew I was okay. I lied to Jin Hayoung's face. I let Namjoon Hayoung lead with half the truth. I let Yoongi Hayoung think I didn't trust him. I did all of that because I thought if I became the person everyone could blame, the group would survive. His lips trembled. But I was wrong. I didn't protect the group. I handed them the knife and called it sacrifice. No one spoke. The confession was too complete to interrupt. Jungkook looked at him like every word cut him, but also like every word was finally real enough to stand on. Suga set the laptop on the table. The copy finished. RM exhaled, one small victory in a room full of damage. Do we have evidence? Suga nodded. Enough to prove the app, the message triggers, the edited files, Mincio's access, Doyeon's involvement, and the manager's compromised phone. The manager looked up pale. Compromised, not willing. Suga looked at him. For now. Jin turned to RM. Then we end this. RM's face hardened. Not yet. Jungkook looked at him. Why? RM turned the laptop toward them. On the screen was one more folder hidden beneath layers of internal logs. Its title was simple. JK Final Leverage. Jimin's face drained of blood. Jungkook saw it. What is that? Jimin whispered. No. Suga's expression darkened. It's locked. RM looked at Jimin. Do you know the password? Jimin shook his head too quickly. Jungkook noticed. Jimin backed away from the table. Don't open that. Jungkook stood. Why? Jimin's voice broke. Because that is the thing I traded everything to keep buried. No one touched the laptop after that. The locked folder sat on the screen like a bomb with no countdown, and somehow that made it worse. Jimin was standing near the wall now, arms wrapped around himself, eyes fixed on the folder title as if staring at it hard enough could keep it closed. Jungkook did not move toward him. Not yet. The room had shifted again. They were no longer chasing just the blackmailer's plan. They were chasing the reason Jimin had surrendered to it. RM spoke first, carefully. Jimin, what is in that folder? Jimin shook his head. I can't. Jin's voice was gentle but strained. You just said you would stop hiding. Jimin looked at him, wounded. I meant about me. Jungkook's face tightened. And this is about me. Jimin closed his eyes. Yes. The word hit Jungkook harder than he expected. After everything, after all the clips, the fake confession, the signed statement, the edited files, there was still something else, something about him. Something Jimin had decided Jungkook could not survive knowing. Suga sat down at the laptop, not opening the folder, only studying it. There are 3 password attempts before wipe. RM turned sharply. Don't try anything. Suga lifted both hands. I'm not. Taehyung moved closer to Jimin, slower this time, less angry but still hurt. Is it a video? Jimin did not answer. Taehyung's face changed. It is, J-Hope whispered. Of Jungkook. Jimin's voice came out almost soundless. Not exactly. Jungkook let out a bitter breath. We're doing that again. Jimin looked at him, and the fear in his eyes was so real Jungkook's anger almost faltered. Almost. I'm trying to find words that don't destroy you. Jungkook stepped closer. Maybe stop deciding what destroys me. Jimin's lips trembled. You say that because you don't know. Then let me know. No, Jungkook froze. That one word brought back every locked door between them. No, don't ask. No, don't follow. No, don't protect me. No, don't know me when I am falling apart. Jimin saw the hurt immediately and looked ashamed, but he still did not take it back. RM rubbed his face, forcing himself to think beyond the emotional storm. If we don't open it, Doyeon still has leverage. If we do open it and it wipes, we lose evidence. If we guess wrong, we lose everything. Suga nodded. We need the password from Doyeon or Minseo. Jin looked toward the hallway. They're gone. Maybe, Suga said. Maybe not. J-Hope checked the camera feeds on the laptop. Wait, the service exit is still locked from inside. RM leaned in. So they didn't leave through there. Taehyung pointed at another feed. Stairwell B, the camera showed only darkness at first. Then a figure moved at the edge of frame. Minseo, alone. She was walking slowly, not running, as if she wanted to be seen. In her hand was a phone. She looked up at the camera and smiled. A message appeared on the manager's compromised phone, now lying on the table. Second twist, the key is not with the hunter, it is with the one Jimin hurt most. Every eye turned to Jungkook. Jungkook stared at the message, then at Jimin. Me. Jimin looked horrified. No, Suga's eyes narrowed. Maybe the password is something only Jungkook would know. RM looked at Jungkook. Think, personal words, dates, places, anything connected to the file. Jungkook's face hardened. I'm not playing their game. Suga's voice was blunt. We already are. Jimin stepped forward. Don't use his memories like a lockpick. Suga turned to him. Then give us another way. Jimin fell silent. The room's patience was thinning, not because they stopped caring, but because care without action was becoming dangerous. Jin looked at Jimin with tired sadness. You keep standing in front of doors and asking us not to open them, but the house is already burning. Jimin's eyes filled again, but this time no one softened the truth for him. Jungkook sat slowly in front of the laptop. He did not touch the keyboard. He only stared at the folder. What would they think I know? Suga answered. Something tied to you and Jimin. Something Doyeon learned from Jimin's phone. Something emotionally loaded enough to make the folder title hurt before we even open it. Taehyung whispered, the apartment. Jimin flinched. Jungkook saw it. No. Jimin said too quickly, no. Jungkook's eyes sharpened. That's one. Suga typed nothing, but he opened a blank note. List possibilities without entering. Jungkook swallowed. Apartment, couch, panic, rain. Jimin's face changed at the last word. Jungkook noticed, so did RM. Rain, RM asked. Jungkook's voice dropped. There was a night it rained. He called me but didn't speak. I found him outside the old studio stairwell. He said he just needed air. Jimin whispered, stop. Jungkook kept going, eyes on him now. We're soaked. You were shaking. You told me not to tell anyone because you didn't want to become another thing people had to manage. Jimin covered his mouth. Jungkook's voice became rougher. I gave you my jacket. You said it smelled like laundry soap and sweat. I told you that was disgusting. You laughed for the first time in days. The room went quiet, not because the memory was dramatic, but because it was tender in a way that felt almost too private to hear. Jimin's tears fell openly now. Please. Jungkook looked at the folder again. What did you save that night as in your phone? Jimin shook his head. Don't. Jungkook's eyes filled. You saved something? Jimin pressed his fist against his mouth. Jungkook turned to Suga. Try rain jacket. Jimin lunged forward. No, Jungkook stopped before typing. The reaction was too strong. Suga looked at Jimin carefully. That's close. Jimin's voice cracked. If you open that folder, you don't just see what they have. You see what I was trying to protect you from becoming. Jungkook looked exhausted. What does that even mean? Jimin looked at him for a long time, then whispered, they have footage from that night. Jungkook frowned. Outside the stairwell, Jimin nodded. Edited, partly. Then we can prove it. Not that part. Jungkook's face tightened. What part? Jimin's eyes squeezed shut. The part where you said you would leave everything if it meant I could breathe. The room froze. Jungkook looked stunned, like he had forgotten the sentence until Jimin returned it to him. Jin's expression softened with pain. J-Hope lowered his head. RM's face turned serious in a different way because he understood the danger immediately. Taehyung whispered, they could twist that. Jimin nodded, voice shaking. They could make it look like I was pulling him away from the group. Like Jungkook wanted to quit because of me. Like I had that power over him. And after everything people already overanalyze, after all the jealousy they tried to create, that sentence would become a weapon. Jungkook's eyes were wet now. I said that because you were on the ground and couldn't breathe. I know. I didn't mean I would abandon the members. I know. Then why didn't you trust them to know too? Jimin looked at the others, shame burning across his face. Because I didn't trust the world to hear it kindly. That answer was honest. It was also not enough. RM stepped forward, voice calm. Jimin, we know Jungkook, we know you. A weapon only works if we let them aim it alone, so we don't. The manager suddenly spoke, voice low. The company would not survive that clip cleanly. Jin turned on him. Read the room. The manager swallowed. I'm not defending them, I'm saying Jimin's fear wasn't irrational. That made everyone quiet because, for once, the manager was right. The fear had roots. The world could twist tenderness into scandal in seconds. A private sentence could become evidence of betrayal if cut by cruel hands. JUNGKOOK stared at the keyboard. Try laundry soap. Jimin's breath caught. Suga looked at him. That's closer. JUNGKOOK typed it into the blank note only, not the folder. Laundry soap. He looked at Jimin. What else? Jimin shook his head, defeated. You won't stop. JUNGKOOK's voice softened. I stopped before, look where it got us. Jimin let out a broken breath. Then he whispered, you called me stubborn. JUNGKOOK almost smiled, but it hurt too much. You are. I said you were worse. I am. Jimin looked at the laptop. Then I said, if the world ever hears you say things like that, they'll make you regret caring about me. JUNGKOOK remembered now. His face changed. And I said, Jimin's voice was barely there. You said, let them, I'll choose you out loud if I have to. The room went silent. JUNGKOOK closed his eyes. There it was, the real leverage, not romance, not scandal, choice, loyalty. The kind of sentence that could be twisted into betrayal of everyone else. The kind of sentence Jimin would rather destroy himself than let the world use against JUNGKOOK. Suga looked at JUNGKOOK. Password? JUNGKOOK opened his eyes and typed into the folder field slowly. Choose you out loud. One attempt. The room held its breath. The folder unlocked. Jimin made a sound like something inside him had torn. But the file that opened was not the rain video. It was a live feed. Doyeon sat in a dark room somewhere inside the building, smiling at the camera. Good, he said. Now JUNGKOOK knows the key. Let's see if he can survive the door. Doyeon's face on the laptop was calm, almost friendly, and that made him more frightening than if he had been shouting. He sat in what looked like one of the old vocal recording rooms, the kind no one used unless every other space was full. Behind him, soundproof walls made the room look like a box built to swallow screams. Mincio stood behind his chair, arms crossed, but her smile was gone. She looked annoyed now, like the members had ruined a script she had rehearsed too many times. Doyeon leaned closer to the camera. Hello, JUNGKOOK SSI, you opened it faster than I expected. JUNGKOOK's voice was flat. Where are you? Doyeon smiled. Still trying to run toward the problem, that's what made this so easy. RM stepped beside JUNGKOOK, placing himself within view of the camera. You are being recorded. Doyeon laughed softly. So are you. Suga's fingers moved over the laptop keys, searching for source data, trace routes, anything useful. Doyeon glanced off-screen and smiled wider. Yoongi SSI, don't waste your hands, the feed is local. You'll find the room when I want you to. Suga did not stop typing. People who talk that much usually need time. Doyeon's smile thinned. RM kept his voice calm. What do you want? Doyeon leaned back. Finally, a leader question. Jimin moved closer to the laptop despite JUNGKOOK's warning look. Doyeon's eyes immediately shifted to him. Jimin, you look better standing. The fainting was a little too theatrical, but effective. JUNGKOOK's hand slammed onto the table. Don't talk to him. Doyeon's eyes brightened. There he is. RM grabbed JUNGKOOK's arm before the reaction could grow. Don't give him the clip. JUNGKOOK's breathing was hard, but he stepped back. Doyeon clapped once slowly. Good, you're learning, but not fast enough. The screen split. On one side was Doyeon, on the other was the rain footage. JUNGKOOK saw himself immediately, younger by only a few months but looking exhausted in a way he had forgotten. He was crouched beside Jimin near the stairwell, his jacket around Jimin's shoulders. Jimin was bent forward, trying to breathe. JUNGKOOK's hand hovered near his back, not touching until Jimin nodded. The footage was intimate but not shameful, private but not wrong. That was what made the blackmail so disgusting. Doyeon spoke over it. Beautiful, isn't it? Two idols, one broken, one ready to abandon everything. The audio played. JUNGKOOK's voice came through, low and panicked. If this place is killing you, we leave. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what I have to lose. I just need you to breathe. The room went still. Jimin looked at the floor, unable to watch. JUNGKOOK stared at his younger self and the pain on his face changed. It was no longer just fear of being exposed. It was anger that anyone could look at that moment and see a weapon instead of love, care, desperation. Doyeon paused the video. Now imagine that without context. Imagine captions. Imagine fans fighting over who JUNGKOOK would leave behind. Imagine shareholders, executives, reporters, rival accounts, antis, everyone turning one sentence into proof that the group is not equal, that JUNGKOOK belongs to one person more than six. RM's jaw tightened. Jin looked sick. J-Hope whispered, "You're disgusting." Doyeon smiled. "I'm realistic." Taehyung stepped closer to the screen. "No, you're small." Minseo's eyes flashed. "Careful." Taehyung laughed bitterly. "What, you'll post another file?" "You already threatened everything. That's the problem with people like you. Once you point every knife, there's nothing left to scare us with except the truth, and the truth is starting to look better than you." Doyeon's smile faded for a second. Taehyung had hit something. RM noticed. So did Suga. Jimin looked at Taehyung, guilt and gratitude mixed in his face. JUNGKOOK did not look away from the screen. "Why?" he asked. Doyeon tilted his head. "Why what?" "Why Jimin?" Doyeon's eyes moved back to him. "Because Jimin was believable." Jimin flinched. Doyeon continued, voice smooth. "He already carries guilt like a second skin. He already thinks love has to be earned through suffering. Give him a threat and he won't ask how to save himself. He'll ask who else he can save by bleeding quietly." Jungkook's fists clenched. Doyeon looked pleased. "And you, Jungkook SSI, were predictable too. Protective, emotional, easy to turn into the dangerous one if pushed hard enough." Jungkook's voice stayed low. "You don't know me. I know what cameras need." That sentence landed like a confession of method. Suga's eyes flicked to the recording indicator on the laptop. RM saw his expression and understood. Keep him talking. RM stepped forward. "And Minseo," Doyeon glanced at her. "Minseo understood access." Minseo's face tightened. Doyeon smiled slightly. "She understood resentment too." Jin's eyes narrowed. "Resentment?" Minseo finally spoke. "Do you know what it is like to protect people who never remember your name unless they need something?" The room went cold. J-Hope stared at her. "We trusted you. You trusted the service I provided," Minseo snapped. "You trusted doors opening, schedules changing, rooms being ready, mistakes disappearing. You trusted me to make your lives smooth, and then you went on stage and thanked each other for surviving." Jin's face hardened. "So you hurt Jimin because you felt invisible." Minseo's voice rose. "I didn't start with hurting him. But you liked it when he depended on you," Suga said quietly. Minseo's mouth shut. Suga leaned back. "There it is." Doyeon's eyes moved toward Suga, annoyed. "Careful, Yoongi SSI." Suga smiled faintly. "You keep saying that, but you're the one hiding in a soundproof room." Doyeon's jaw tightened. The calm mask was starting to crack. RM pressed. "What do you want, Doyeon?" Doyeon looked back at him. "A trade." Jungkook laughed coldly. "No, you haven't heard it." "Still no." Doyeon's eyes sharpened. "The raw files for one public statement." RM went still. "What statement?" Doyeon smiled. "Jimin admits to emotional instability and apologizes for causing internal tension. The company frames tonight as a health break. Jungkook stays silent. The group survives. The raw files disappear." Jimin's face went blank. Jungkook turned to him immediately. "Don't even think about it." Jimin looked at Doyeon, and for one terrifying second, everyone saw the old habit return. The calculation, the willingness to become the wound if it kept everyone else untouched. Jungkook grabbed his wrist, not hard, but firm enough to anchor him. "No." Jimin looked at Jungkook's hand, then at his face. "If that statement ends it, it won't." Jungkook's voice cracked. "It will never end because people like him don't stop when you kneel. They just learn how low you'll go." Jimin's eyes filled. Doyeon watched them with interest. "Touching but wrong, you have 3 minutes before the rain clip leaves this building." RM looked at Suga. Suga's fingers were still moving. "Need more time." Taehyung stepped forward. "Then take mine." Everyone turned. Taehyung looked directly at Doyeon. "You wanted a triangle, right? You wanted jealousy, distance, fans choosing sides. Here's a better story. I found the message. I hid it. I fought with Jimin. I made everything worse because I was jealous Jungkook trusted him more. Use me." Jimin's eyes widened. Stop." Taehyung did not look at him. "No, you don't get to be the only martyr in the room." Doyeon smiled slowly. "Interesting." RM said sharply, "Taehyung." Taehyung kept going. "You want someone believable. I'm believable. People already think I'm emotional, unpredictable, dramatic. Give them me instead." Jimin shook his head, horrified. "No." Taehyung finally looked at him. "Feels awful, doesn't it?" Jimin could not speak. Taehyung's voice softened just enough to hurt. "That's how we felt watching you offer yourself again and again." Doyeon leaned forward, entertained. "Maybe I should take both." Jungkook's voice cut in. "Take me." Room exploded with protests. Jin shouted his name. J-Hope grabbed his arm. RM said, "Absolutely not." But Jungkook's eyes stayed on Doyeon. "You built this around me anyway. You want dangerous Jungkook. You want emotional Jungkook. Fine, I'll give you a statement." Jimin turned on him, furious and terrified. "Don't you dare." Jungkook looked at him. "Now you know how it feels." Jimin's tears spilled again. Jungkook faced the screen. But my statement won't be the one you wrote. Doyeon's smile faded. Then it has no value. Jungkook leaned closer to the camera. It will when I say it live. RM froze. Jungkook. Jungkook continued, voice steady now, frighteningly steady. I'll say the rain clip is real. I'll say I meant every word. I'll say Jimin was struggling and I was scared, and the only shame belongs to the person who filmed it. I'll say the group is not weak because one member cared enough to panic. I'll say if anyone wants to twist that, they can twist it with my voice attached. Doyeon's face hardened. Jimin stared at Jungkook like he had just done the one thing Jimin never imagined, refused to be protected by silence. Jungkook looked at him. You said the world would make me regret caring about you. His voice shook, but he did not look away. Let them try. The laptop suddenly glitched. Suga's eyes lit up. Got you. Doyeon's head snapped toward something off-screen. For the first time, real panic crossed his face. Suga stood. Room 3B old vocal booth. RM turned toward the door. Jungkook moved too, but Jimin grabbed his hand. Together, Jimin said, voice trembling but clear. Jungkook looked down at their joined hands, then back at him. The old rule would have separated them. The new one did not. Jungkook nodded. Together. They ran as a group, not because it was the fastest way, but because nobody trusted the building enough to split again. RM led with Taehyung beside him, both scanning corners and doors. Suga carried the laptop under one arm, still watching the trace. Jin held the paper bag and the manager's phone like evidence he refused to let disappear. J-Hope stayed close behind Jimin, and Jungkook stayed at Jimin's side, their hands no longer locked but close enough that their knuckles brushed with every step. That small distance mattered. It was not hiding. It was not clinging. It was choice. The red emergency lights had stopped flickering, but the hallways still felt hostile. Every camera dome above them looked like an eye. Every closed door looked like someone listening. Jimin's breathing grew uneven near the second corridor. Jungkook noticed immediately. Stop! Jimin shook his head. No, Jimin. I can do it. Jungkook almost argued, then changed his words. Then breathe with me while you do it. Jimin looked at him for half a second, surprised by the difference. Not stop. Not obey, breathe with me. He nodded once and matched Jungkook's pace. Behind them, J-Hope saw it and looked away with a small, painful smile. Not healed, not fixed, but something had shifted. At the corner before vocal room 3B, RM raised a hand. Everyone stopped. Voices came from inside. Minseo's first, sharp and frightened. You said they wouldn't trace it. Doyeon answered, furious now. We weren't supposed to work together this quickly. Suga whispered, that's the nicest thing he said all night. Jin glared at him. Now, Suga shrugged, stress response. RM pointed to the door. We go in calm. Taehyung's eyes burned. Define calm. No hitting. Jungkook said nothing. RM looked at him specifically. Jungkook. Jungkook's voice was low. I heard you. Jimin looked at him and Jungkook gave the smallest nod. He would not become the clip they wanted. Not tonight. RM opened the door. The vocal booth was dim, lit only by a monitor and 2 desk lamps. Doyeon stood near the console with the small drive in his hand. Minseo was beside him, phone clutched tight. For 1 second, the two sides simply stared at each other. Then Doyeon smiled, but the calm was gone. You found the room, congratulations. RM stepped inside first. Put the drive down. Doyeon lifted it slightly. This. Jungkook's eyes locked on it. Jimin's body tensed. Doyeon saw both reactions and smiled wider. Still works. Taehyung took 1 step forward. You're done. Minseo laughed, but it sounded brittle. You think because you found a room, you won? Suga placed the laptop on the nearest table and turned it toward them. No, because you talked too much. Doyeon's smile faltered. Suga continued. We have the app logs, trigger messages, access records, edited files, your live feed, your trade demand, and your location trace. Also, your little speech about using Jimin because he carries guilt like a second skin. Very cinematic, very admissible. Doyeon's face tightened. Minseo looked at him. You said the recording wouldn't matter. Jin stepped forward, voice cold. It always matters when cruel people explain themselves. Doyeon's eyes moved to the door, calculating escape. RM noticed. Don't. Doyeon gave a quiet laugh. You still don't get it. Evidence only matters if it reaches someone who can use it. The company will bury this to avoid scandal. Security will protect their own mistake. You will be told to rest, reflect, and stay quiet. The manager, who had followed at the back in silence, stepped into the room. His face was pale but resolved. Not this time. Everyone turned. The manager looked at Doyeon, then Minseo. I made mistakes tonight. Before tonight, I treated risk like paperwork and JIMIN like a shield, but I won't bury this. Mincio scoffed. You think they'll let you decide? The manager held up his empty hands. No, that's why I sent the evidence to someone outside my chain before the lights went out. Suga looked at him sharply. You what? The manager swallowed. A legal director not connected to security. I didn't know who to trust, so I trusted the person Mincio complained about most. For the first time, Mincio looked truly afraid. Doyeon's face darkened. You idiot. The manager flinched but did not step back. Probably. Jin muttered, at least self-awareness arrived. Doyeon's hand tightened around the drive. Then maybe the scandal goes public anyway. JUNGKOOK stepped forward slowly. RM moved to stop him, but JIMIN touched RM's arm and shook his head. JUNGKOOK stopped a few feet from Doyeon. His voice was calm now, not cold, not explosive. Calm in a way that came from finally choosing his own truth. Post it. Doyeon blinked. JIMIN's breath caught. JUNGKOOK did not look back. Post the rain clip. Post me saying I would leave if he couldn't breathe. Post whatever you think makes me look weak or dangerous or too attached. But post the full clip, not the cut one. Doyeon smiled again, but uncertainty had entered it. You think people care about context? JUNGKOOK nodded once. Some won't, but the members will know. JIMIN will know, I will know, and that matters more than your version. Doyeon stepped closer. Brave words from someone who has never had the world turn on him for the wrong sentence. JUNGKOOK's eyes darkened. You think I'm not scared? I'm terrified, but I'm more scared of becoming the kind of person who lets JIMIN destroy himself so I can look untouched. JIMIN closed his eyes as the words hit him. Mincio looked between them, disgusted. This loyalty is exactly why you were easy to use. Taehyung moved forward then, voice sharp. No, you use silence, not loyalty. There's a difference. J-Hope stepped beside him. You used shame. Jin followed. And exhaustion. Suga came next. And access. RM stood in the center. But you don't get to use us against each other anymore. For the first time all night, the seven stood on one side of the room, not perfectly healed, not free from hurt, but together enough to change the balance. Doyeon looked at them and understood that the trap had failed in the one place it needed to succeed. JIMIN was no longer alone. JUNGKOOK was no longer isolated. Taehyung was no longer reacting blindly. RM was no longer leading with half the truth. Jin was no longer joking around the pain. J-Hope was no longer smiling through fear. Suga was no longer watching from the edge. Doyeon lifted the drive. Then catch! He threw it not toward JUNGKOOK, but toward the open vent near the wall. JUNGKOOK moved instantly, but Taehyung was closer. He lunged, hit the floor hard, and caught the drive inches before it disappeared into the dark gap. Jin shouted, Taehyung. Taehyung rolled onto his back, breath knocked out, but his hand was closed tight around the drive. Got it, he gasped. JIMIN rushed to him. Are you hurt? Taehyung looked up at him, still angry, still bruised inside, but alive. Now you ask. JIMIN's face crumpled. Taehyung sighed, then held up the drive. Take it before I regret being dramatic. JIMIN laughed through tears, the sound broken but real. JUNGKOOK helped Taehyung sit up, and for 1 second all three of them were on the floor together in the middle of the ruined room, tangled in relief and unresolved pain. Then Mincio moved. She darted toward the door, but J-Hope blocked her, not aggressively, just firmly. His usual brightness was gone, replaced by something steady and wounded. No more running after hurting people. Mincio stared at him. You don't understand. J-Hope's voice shook. I understand more than you think. Feeling unseen doesn't give you the right to make someone disappear inside himself. Mincio looked away first. Doyeon, cornered now, gave one last bitter smile. You think this ends with a drive? RM answered, no, it ends when the truth is no longer yours to edit. Suga plugged the drive into the laptop with Jin hovering over him like a guard dog. Folders appeared. Raw footage, edited cuts, message templates, payment records, access logs, a list of scheduled release times. Then Suga stopped. There's one more file. RM leaned in. What? Suga's face changed. A next phase plan. JUNGKOOK looked over his shoulder. On the screen was a document titled, If Members Unite. Jimin's blood ran cold. Doyeon laughed softly from across the room, even with defeat closing in. Did you really think I didn't plan for that? The document opened before Suga touched it, triggered automatically. One line appeared on the screen. If they choose each other, make the world choose for them. Then every phone in the room buzzed at once, and somewhere outside the building, a headline draft went live for exactly 3 seconds before disappearing. Long enough for screenshots. Long enough to start a storm. Long enough for JIMIN to realize the hunter had never needed to win inside the room. He only needed them to arrive too late. The headline was gone before anyone could fully read it, but 3 seconds was enough in a world that lived on screenshots. 3 seconds was enough for the wrong eyes to capture the right poison. 3 seconds was enough for a private nightmare to become public bait. Suga froze with one hand still on the laptop, his face lit by the screen, while RM leaned over his shoulder and read the cached fragment that remained in the system preview. Exclusive, internal conflict between BTS members linked to emotional dependency and hidden health crisis. Jin went completely still. J-Hope whispered, "No." Taehyung, still sitting on the floor with the drive in his hand, looked up like someone had opened the ceiling and dropped the entire world on them. JIMIN did not speak. His face did not even change at first. That was what scared JUNGKOOK. No panic, no argument, no desperate attempt to apologize, just silence. The kind of silence that came after someone's worst fear finally arrived, and they were too tired to run from it anymore. JUNGKOOK turned toward him. "JIMIN!" JIMIN's eyes were fixed on the laptop. "It's already out," RM said quickly. "Not fully, it was pulled, we don't know how far it spread." Suga was already typing. "I can check cached mentions, but if screenshots moved, we won't control the first wave." Jin's voice turned sharp. "Then we release the evidence first." The manager stepped forward. "No, wait, we need a coordinated response." Jin spun toward him. "Coordinated? You mean delayed until everyone outside this room decides what version of Jimin is easiest to sacrifice?" The manager looked pained. "That is not what I mean. It is what keeps happening." J-Hope's voice was quiet, but it cut through the room. Everyone looked at him. His eyes were red, but his expression was steady now. "Every time we wait, someone else speaks for us. Every time we try to make it clean, Jimin gets dirtier in the story." Jimin lowered his eyes, and that small movement broke JUNGKOOK more than the headline. Doyeon, cornered near the wall with RM blocking one side and Jin blocking the other, smiled faintly. "There it is, public pressure. The only member stronger than all of you." JUNGKOOK looked at him. "Shut up." Doyeon's smile widened. "You can hate me, but you're still moving according to the rules. Release too fast and you look defensive. Stay quiet and people fill the silence. Deny it and the clips look suspicious. Confirm it and the group looks unstable. No matter what you choose, the story is no longer private." RM's jaw clenched because he knew enough about public storms to understand the cruelty in that truth. The first claim always mattered. The first headline shaped the battlefield. The first screenshot became the seed people watered with fear, bias, loyalty, and anger. Taehyung stood slowly, wincing from the fall, and placed the drive on the table. "Then we make our own first claim." RM turned to him. "No, listen." Taehyung's voice shook, but he did not back down. "They keep making Jimin claim guilt. They wanted JUNGKOOK to claim anger. They wanted us to claim sides, so we claim each other first." Jin looked at him, eyes softening despite the fear. "That sounds nice, but what does it mean?" Taehyung looked at Jimin. "It means nobody apologizes alone." Jimin's head lifted. "No." JUNGKOOK almost laughed because of course that was Jimin's first word, still trying to stand in front of the damage, still trying to take the hit first. "I said no," Jimin repeated, stronger now. "If anything goes out, it has to be clear that I made choices, I lied, I pushed you away, I signed that statement." JUNGKOOK stepped toward him. "And why did you sign it?" Jimin's mouth tightened. "That doesn't erase what I did." "No one said it does." "Then don't cover it." JUNGKOOK's eyes flashed. "I'm not covering it, I'm putting it in the right light." Jimin shook his head. "That sounds like protecting me from consequences." "No," JUNGKOOK said, voice rising for the first time since the headline. "It sounds like stopping a blackmailer from turning your consequences into their weapon." The room went quiet again. Jimin looked away, but JUNGKOOK followed, not physically, but with his voice. "You want to own what you did? Fine. Own it in front of us. Own it when we talk about how badly it hurt. Own it when Taehyung tells you he felt abandoned. Own it when I tell you I hated myself for not seeing through it. But do not stand there and call public humiliation accountability." Jimin's eyes filled, but he did not answer. JUNGKOOK took one more step. "That's not accountability, that's you trying to punish yourself before anyone else can." Jin whispered. "He's right." Jimin looked at him, betrayed by the agreement. Jin's face softened. "I'm angry at you. I am. You scared years off my life tonight. You lied to me, and I hate that you thought I couldn't handle the truth, but I don't want strangers turning that into entertainment." J-Hope nodded, wiping his face with the back of his hand. "I want the truth with us first, not them." Taehyung looked at Jimin, voice quieter now. "I still need to be mad at you. Don't make me defend you before I get to be mad properly." It was such a Taehyung sentence, wounded and honest and strangely gentle, that Jimin almost broke. Suga looked up from the laptop. We have maybe minutes before the screenshots spread wider. A few small accounts already posted blurred captures. No major outlet yet. RM turned into leader mode, but this time everyone could see the difference. He was not trying to carry the whole truth alone. He was building it out loud. We need a statement that does 3 things. 1. Confirm a private security breach without feeding the emotional framing. 2. State that manipulated materials exist and are being handled legally. 3. Show unity without pretending nobody was hurt. The manager nodded quickly. That is sensible, Jin glared. Don't sound relieved, you're still on thin ice. The manager closed his mouth. Doyeon laughed softly. A polished statement won't kill curiosity. Suga did not look at him. No, but evidence kills leverage. He turned the laptop slightly. The drive has raw footage. It proves the rain clip was filmed without consent and edited. The fake confession was spliced. The signed statement has embedded trace marks. Payment records connect Doyeon to 2 media brokers. RM looked at the manager. Can the legal director verify receipt? The manager nodded, pulling out a second emergency phone from the equipment shelf after Jin checked it like he expected it to bite. I can call her. Speaker, Jin said immediately. The manager put the call on speaker. It rang twice. A woman answered, brisk and alert, not sleepy, not confused. I have the files, I also have questions. RM stepped forward. This is RM. We need external preservation, immediate legal hold, and a public holding statement. The woman paused for half a second. Are all members safe? RM looked around the room. Safe was a complicated word. Physically, yes. JIMIN flinched at the honesty. The legal director continued. Do not confront anyone alone. Do not release personal explanations without counsel. I am escalating this now. JUNGKOOK spoke before RM could answer. No. Everyone turned. The legal director went quiet. JUNGKOOK's eyes were on JIMIN. We're not releasing personal explanations written by someone who wasn't in this room. RM said carefully. JUNGKOOK, legal needs to protect us. Then legal can protect the evidence. The first words about us should come from us. The manager looked alarmed. That is risky. JUNGKOOK turned to him. So was letting JIMIN sign a fake confession. The manager had no answer. The legal director spoke again, calmer than expected. What are you proposing? JUNGKOOK looked at the others. He did not decide alone, that mattered. RM studied him, then looked at JIMIN. A short member statement. No details that expose private health matters. No individual blame. No denial of pain. We acknowledge a breach and manipulation. We say we are together and handling it. JIMIN's lips parted. But RM held up a hand, gentle but firm. And we say no member will be made a scapegoat. That sentence hit JIMIN directly. His eyes filled again. Doyeon's smile faded. Minseo looked toward the door like she could already hear the trap closing. Taehyung crossed his arms. Add that private care between members is not scandal. Jin nodded hard. Yes. J-Hope said, and ask people not to spread stolen material. Suga added, not ask, state that sharing it supports the crime. JUNGKOOK looked at JIMIN. And we do not mention your panic attacks. JIMIN swallowed. But if the rain clip spreads, then I'll speak. JUNGKOOK's voice was steady. Not because you failed, because it was my sentence too. JIMIN looked at him, tears gathered but not falling. You don't have to claim it. JUNGKOOK's answer came quietly. I already did when I said it. For a second, no one moved. The entire night had been built around making JUNGKOOK afraid of that sentence, making JIMIN ashamed of being cared for, making the members suspicious of one another's private tenderness. But JUNGKOOK did not step back from it now. He claimed it, not as scandal, not as weakness, as truth. RM nodded slowly. Then we record one voice note. No video, audio only, 7 voices, short. Suga looked at the screen. Major accounts are starting to ask about the screenshot. Jin breathed out. Then let's be faster than the lie. JIMIN stepped back. I can't. JUNGKOOK turned. You don't have to say much. No, I mean I can't let you all do this for me. Taehyung's expression tightened, but his voice was soft. We're not doing it for you, we're doing it with you. JIMIN looked at each of them. RM, tired but steady. Jin, angry but protective. Suga, quiet but ready. J-Hope, hurt but present. Taehyung, bruised but standing. JUNGKOOK, broken in places JIMIN had caused, but still there. The claim was not a statement yet, it was this. The decision not to let one person be turned into the group's wound. JIMIN finally nodded. Okay, Doyeon's face hardened. You think unity saves you? RM looked at him. No, Jin added, but it ruins your favorite trick. Suga pressed record on the clean device. For one breath, everyone was silent. Then RM spoke first, voice calm and unmistakable. This is BTS. A private security breach involving manipulated material has occurred tonight. We are safe, we are together, and we are taking legal action. Jin followed, voice firm. Do not spread stolen or edited content. Sharing it helps the people who hurt us. Suga's voice came next, low and controlled. Any material released without context was taken and altered without consent. J-Hope breathed in. Please don't turn care between members into a weapon. Taehyung's voice shook but stayed strong. No member stands alone in this. JUNGKOOK looked at Jimin before speaking. And no one gets to decide our truth by cutting it into pieces. Then everyone looked at Jimin. He stared at the recorder like it was a cliff. His voice came out small at first, then steadier. I made mistakes because I was scared. I will face them with my members, not through someone else's lie. RM stopped the recording. Nobody celebrated. The room was too wounded for that. But for the first time, the first claim belonged to them. Then Suga's laptop pinged. He looked down and his face changed. The statement hasn't even been sent yet. RM frowned. What is it? Suga turned the screen. A new file had appeared on the drive. It had not been there before. The title read, JIMIN Private Audio Original. JUNGKOOK looked at Jimin. Jimin went pale. Doyeon smiled again, slow and cruel. You claimed each other. Now let's see if you can claim what he really said when none of you were listening. Jimin's face lost every bit of color. Whatever was inside that audio file, he knew it. JUNGKOOK saw the recognition before Jimin tried to hide it. He saw the way Jimin's hand curled against his own chest, the way his breathing tightened, the way his eyes searched the room for an exit that was not a door but a way to stop existing inside this moment. Jin moved first, stepping between Jimin and the laptop. No, we are not opening another emotional trap just because it has a scary title. Suga did not touch the keyboard. Agreed. Doyeon laughed softly from across the room. That's disappointing. I thought you wanted truth. RM looked at him coldly. Truth does not come from ambush. Doyeon's eyes moved to JUNGKOOK. Doesn't it ask him? He wants to know. He always wants to know when it comes to Jimin. JUNGKOOK's jaw tightened, but he did not answer. Doyeon leaned slightly forward, enjoying the silence. That audio is not edited, not cut, not staged, not forced. It is Jimin alone, speaking after he signed the statement. He thought the room was empty. He thought no one would hear him, but rooms have ears when people like me build them. J-Hope's face twisted with disgust. You recorded him alone. Minseo, standing near the wall with her arms folded tight, looked away for the first time. Doyeon smiled. He was most honest alone. Jimin whispered, Stop. Everyone heard him. It was not a command. It was a plea. JUNGKOOK turned toward him, the pull in his chest almost unbearable. The old him would have asked immediately. What did you say? Was it about me? Was it real? But tonight had changed something. Every file had demanded that JUNGKOOK make Jimin prove himself. Every clip had tried to turn JUNGKOOK's pain into suspicion. And now the last trap was obvious because it was dressed as truth. JUNGKOOK looked at the laptop, then at Jimin. Do you want us to hear it? Jimin stared at him, shocked. The question itself seemed to undo him. No one had asked that all night. They had demanded, revealed, exposed, cornered, protected, accused, but this was different. Do you want us to hear it? Jimin's lips trembled. No, Doyeon smiled wider. Of course he doesn't. JUNGKOOK turned to him. Then we don't. The room went still. Even RM looked at JUNGKOOK with quiet surprise. Doyeon's smile dropped. You're bluffing. No, JUNGKOOK's voice was steady. You thought I'd need to hear every secret before choosing him. I don't. Jimin's eyes filled instantly. JUNGKOOK did not look away from Doyeon. If he said something that hurts, he can tell me when he's ready. If he said something scared, it belongs to him. If he said something about me, I don't need to steal it from a room you bugged. Doyeon's face hardened. You are making a very emotional mistake. Suga leaned back slightly. Funny, it looks like growth from here. Jin almost smiled despite everything. Taehyung watched JUNGKOOK with a new expression, something like respect mixed with sadness. J-Hope quietly reached for Jimin's hand, and this time Jimin let him hold it. RM nodded once. We preserve the file as evidence, we do not play it. The legal director, still on the speaker call and listening in tense silence, spoke firmly. That is the correct decision. Preserve, do not access unless required for legal review with consent. Doyeon's eyes flashed. Consent? He laughed, suddenly sharper. You all still think this is about consent? The public won't ask for consent. The public will play whatever appears. They will slow it down, caption it, translate it wrong, cry over it, fight over it, worship it, hate it. You can refuse to listen, but you can't make everyone else kind. Jimin flinched because that was exactly the fear that had controlled him for months. JUNGKOOK saw the flinch and took one step closer to him, not touching yet. No, JUNGKOOK said quietly. but we can stop becoming cruel before they do. That sentence landed hard. Doyeon looked at him, and for the first time, anger fully broke through his polished mask. You think you're different because you say pretty things in a crisis. Wait until the comments start. Wait until people accuse Jimin of manipulating you. Wait until people say you are weak. Wait until every old moment is dragged out and turned into proof. You will wish you had taken my trade. Jungkook's answer was immediate. No, I won't. You don't know that. I do. Jungkook looked at Jimin then. Because I already know what losing him feels like, and it was worse than being misunderstood. Jimin broke, not loudly, not dramatically. His shoulders simply folded inward as if the strength holding him upright had finally snapped. J-Hope caught him first, then Jin moved in, and even Taehyung reached without thinking. Jimin covered his face, trying to hide the sob that escaped him, but no one let the shame make him smaller. Jungkook wanted to go to him, but he stopped himself because this moment did not belong only to him. That was another lesson of the night. Jimin had not hurt only Jungkook. Jimin was not loved only by Jungkook. The others had the right to hold him too. RM saw Jungkook stop and understood. His face softened with something like pride and grief. Suga copied the new audio file into the evidence archive without opening it, marking it as unplayed. The legal director confirmed receipt. Outside the room, distant footsteps began to sound. Not hurried, organized, security finally moving through channels that Minseo and Doyeon no longer controlled. Minseo heard it and panicked. Doyeon! Doyeon looked at the door, then at the drive, then at the laptop. His control was collapsing. Delete it, he hissed. Minseo stared at him. What? Your phone. Delete the backups. She shook her head. I don't have all of them. His eyes sharpened. What do you mean? A strange silence opened between them. Suga noticed immediately. Oh, RM turned. What? Suga looked at Minseo. She kept insurance. Minseo's face tightened. Doyeon slowly turned toward her. You kept copies. Minseo swallowed. You did too. Doyeon's expression darkened with betrayal so sudden it almost made Jin laugh. After all that talk, you don't even trust each other, Jin said. Shocking. Minseo snapped. I wasn't going to let him throw me away if this failed. Doyeon stepped toward her. Where are they? Jungkook moved immediately, blocking the path not for Minseo's sake but because violence would only feed the chaos. RM's voice cut through. Nobody moves. Doyeon ignored him. Where are the backups? Minseo's fear turned into anger. Why, so you can use me like you used him? She pointed at Jimin, and the gesture made Jungkook's eyes go cold. You think you're better because you had a plan? You fed on his guilt. You fed on my resentment. You told me I deserved recognition, then made me the dirty hand while you stayed clean. Doyeon laughed bitterly. You wanted power. I wanted to matter. Her voice cracked, and for 1 second she looked less like a villain and more like someone who had chosen cruelty because pain had made it feel justified. But J-Hope's face hardened. You mattered to us before you hurt him. Minseo looked at him, and that hurt her more than accusation. No, I didn't. Yes, J-Hope said, voice shaking. Maybe not enough. Maybe we failed to see everything, but you were not invisible. You chose to become dangerous. Minseo looked away, eyes wet with rage she refused to let become regret. The footsteps outside grew closer. The manager moved to the door and spoke to someone outside in a low voice. RM turned to the legal director on speaker. We need a safe way to secure Minseo's backups. The legal director answered. Do not negotiate privately. Get the device, preserve chain of custody, and keep everyone in the room until external legal security arrives. Suga looked at Minseo. Phone. She laughed. No, Doyeon smiled suddenly, cruel and desperate. She won't give it because the best backup isn't on the phone. Everyone turned. Minseo's face went white. Doyeon looked at Jimin. You really don't know she hid one somewhere you would never destroy. Jimin stared at him, confused and terrified. Jungkook stepped closer to Jimin. What is he talking about? Doyeon smiled. Ask the person who helped Jimin survive before Jungkook knew he needed saving. The room went cold. Jimin's lips parted. No. His face sharpened. Who? Doyeon's eyes moved slowly toward the door. Someone outside the 7, someone Jimin trusted before all of you finally decided to listen. Jin's voice dropped. Stop playing. Doyeon leaned back as security voices filled the hallway. The backup is already with them, and when they see the headline, they'll think releasing it is protecting Jimin. Jimin shook his head, panic returning full force. No, they wouldn't. Jungkook turned to him. Who? Jimin could barely breathe. My brother. The room froze. Even Doyeon looked satisfied, like the final blade had found its mark. Jimin whispered again, broken. He thinks JUNGKOOK is the reason I was suffering. The room changed the moment JIMIN said my brother. Until then, every threat had come from inside the building, from compromised phones, edited files, stolen footage, and people who had turned access into a weapon. But family was different. Family did not need passwords to hurt you. Family knew the old version of your pain, the one you carried before fame, before cameras, before the world learned your name. JUNGKOOK stared at JIMIN, and the sentence replayed in his head with a new kind of dread. He thinks JUNGKOOK is the reason I was suffering. JIMIN looked like he wanted to take it back, not because it was false, but because saying it out loud made JUNGKOOK part of another wound he had never seen. Jin's voice softened immediately. Your brother has the backup. JIMIN shook his head too fast. I don't know, maybe I don't know what Mincio sent him. RM turned to Mincio. What did you send? Mincio's face was pale now, but her jaw stayed stubborn. Proof. JUNGKOOK's voice was dangerously quiet. Proof of what? Mincio looked at him with fear and resentment tangled together. That JIMIN was falling apart while you kept showing up like you were the only person who could save him. JIMIN's head snapped up. That's not what happened. Mincio looked at him. It's what your family would see. JIMIN stepped forward, hurt turning into fury. You contacted my family. Mincio swallowed. Your brother contacted me first. The words hit JIMIN like a slap. What? Doyeon laughed softly. There it is, the part even JIMIN didn't know. JUNGKOOK turned on him. Stop enjoying this. Doyeon smiled. Why, this is the cleanest twist. The outside pressure was already there, we only gave it direction. RM looked at Mincio. Explain. Mincio crossed her arms tighter, but the confidence was gone. His brother was worried, months ago. He said JIMIN sounded strange on calls, kept saying he was busy, avoided questions, lost weight, laughed too quickly, changed the subject whenever JUNGKOOK's name came up. JIMIN looked down, shame and heartbreak moving across his face. He noticed, J-Hope whispered. Of course he noticed. Mincio continued. He asked if someone in the company was pressuring him. I said I couldn't discuss private matters. Then he asked if JUNGKOOK had something to do with it. JUNGKOOK's face went still. JIMIN turned to him immediately. He doesn't know you like that. He was scared. JUNGKOOK nodded, but it hurt anyway. Not because a brother had suspected him. He could understand fear. It hurt because JIMIN had been suffering visibly enough for family to ask questions, and JUNGKOOK had been standing beside him every day, believing the mask because the mask had been designed for him. RM's voice stayed calm. And you encouraged the suspicion. Mincio did not answer. Jin's expression darkened. You did, Mincio snapped. I told him JIMIN needed distance from certain people. JIMIN whispered, why would you do that? Mincio's eyes filled with angry tears. Because you listened when fear came from family. You didn't listen when it came from staff. JIMIN looked at her like she had become something unrecognizable. You used my brother to control me. I used someone who cared whether you lived through this. JUNGKOOK stepped forward, but JIMIN raised one hand, not to protect Mincio. To claim his own anger. Don't say that like care belongs to you. Mincio flinched. JIMIN's voice shook, but it grew stronger. You don't get to take my brother's worry and turn it into your weapon. You don't get to take JUNGKOOK's care and call it control. You don't get to take my fear and call it cooperation. You don't get to rename every good thing until it sounds ugly. The room went silent. JUNGKOOK stared at him. For the first time that night, JIMIN was not apologizing, not shrinking, not offering himself up. He was angry, not at himself, at the people who had hurt him, and that anger looked like the first breath of freedom. Suga quietly said, we need to contact your brother before he sees the screenshots. JIMIN's anger vanished into panic. He won't answer if he thinks I'm with all of you. JUNGKOOK swallowed. Especially me. JIMIN turned to him. No, JIMIN. No, don't do that. Don't make his fear your guilt. JUNGKOOK's smile was sad and small. Sounds familiar. JIMIN looked away, hit by his own reflection. RM stepped in before the moment could spiral. We call from JIMIN's phone, Suga shook his head. Compromised history, use clean line. The legal director spoke through speaker. I can initiate a recorded welfare contact with consent. JIMIN immediately shook his head. No legal voice, he'll panic. Jin nodded. Family first, legal after. J-Hope looked at JIMIN. Do you want to call him alone? JUNGKOOK's body tensed, but he said nothing. He had promised through action now. JIMIN got to choose what belonged to him. JIMIN looked at JUNGKOOK, then at the others. The old instinct told him to call alone to control the damage, to keep JUNGKOOK from hearing whatever his brother might say. But that instinct had built the trap. He took a shaky breath. No, I'll call with you here. JUNGKOOK's eyes softened. I can step out. JIMIN shook his head. I don't want you to. Those 6 words were quiet, but they changed JUNGKOOK's face completely. After months of being pushed away, being asked to stay was almost too much. Jin handed Jimin the clean phone. Speaker, Jimin hesitated. At first. RM gestured for everyone to move back slightly, giving him space without leaving him isolated. Doyeon and Minseo were now guarded near the wall, with external security finally entering the room under the legal director's remote instruction. But even with them contained, the real danger had shifted to a phone call. Jimin dialed from memory. The first ring felt too long, the second felt worse. On the third, his brother answered. Hello, Jimin's eyes closed. Hyung. There was a sharp silence. Then his brother's voice changed completely. Jimin, where are you? Are you okay? What is happening online? Jimin's lips trembled. I'm safe. Don't say that like a script. Are you with him? The room froze. JUNGKOOK lowered his eyes. Jimin looked at him and forced himself not to hide. I'm with my members. His brother's voice tightened. Is JUNGKOOK there? Jimin swallowed. Yes. Put the phone away from him. JUNGKOOK flinched just slightly, but Jimin saw it. So did everyone. Jimin's hand shook around the phone. No. His brother went quiet. What? Jimin's voice was fragile but firm. No, I won't move the phone away from him like he's dangerous. His brother exhaled sharply. Jimin, you don't understand what I was sent. I understand more than you think. I heard you crying. Jimin's face crumpled. What? His brother's voice broke. I heard audio of you saying you couldn't breathe when he left. I heard you say you didn't know who you were without him watching you. I heard you say if JUNGKOOK hated you, maybe you deserved it. What was I supposed to think? JUNGKOOK's face went pale. Jimin looked like the room had vanished. That was the private audio, not a betrayal, not an insult, a breakdown. A confession of dependence, shame, fear, and love twisted into something dangerous. Doyeon had not needed to play it. He had already placed it where it would hurt most. Jimin whispered, Hyung, that was recorded without me knowing. His brother's breathing was uneven. Did he hurt you? Jimin looked at JUNGKOOK. JUNGKOOK could not meet his eyes. Jimin's answer came slowly, clearly, with every member listening. No, I hurt him because people made me believe that was the only way to keep him safe. His brother was silent. Jimin continued, voice shaking. JUNGKOOK was there when I couldn't sleep. He brought food when I lied and said I ate. He sat outside the door when I was ashamed to let anyone see me panic. He didn't make me weak. Saw me when I was already weak and he stayed. JUNGKOOK covered his mouth with one hand, eyes shining. Jin looked down. J-Hope wiped his face again. Taehyung breathed out slowly. RM closed his eyes for 1 second. On the phone, Jimin's brother spoke more quietly. Then why did you sound so broken? Jimin's tears fell. Because I thought staying meant he would be destroyed with me. His brother's voice softened, but fear remained. Jimin, Jimin swallowed hard. Did Minseo send you files? Silence. That was answer enough. RM's eyes sharpened. Suga leaned closer. His brother said she said not to trust company channels. Did she tell you to release anything if a headline appeared? Jimin asked. Another silence. Jimin's hand tightened. Hyung, his brother whispered. She said if they tried to bury it, I should protect you first. Jimin closed his eyes. Please don't send anything. I already uploaded a draft. JUNGKOOK's head lifted. RM stepped forward. Suga's face went tense. Jimin's voice broke. Where? His brother answered. Private scheduled post, 10 minutes from now. Jimin almost dropped the phone. JUNGKOOK caught his wrist, steadying him without taking over. Jimin looked at him, panicked. JUNGKOOK whispered, breathe, ask him to stop it. Jimin nodded, tears falling. Hyung, cancel it. His brother's voice shook. I don't know if I should. JUNGKOOK closed his eyes, accepting the hit before it came. Jimin looked at the phone and made the claim that terrified him most. Then listen to JUNGKOOK, not the files, not Minseo, him. The room stopped breathing. Jimin held the phone toward JUNGKOOK. JUNGKOOK stared at it like it was heavier than anything he had ever held. Then he took 1 step closer and spoke, voice low, respectful, and raw. Hyung Nim, I know you have no reason to trust me right now, but I need you to trust Jimin's voice while he is awake, while he is safe, and while no one is cutting his words apart. Please cancel the post. If after that you still want answers, I'll give them, but don't let the people who recorded him crying decide how you protect him. There was a long silence. Then Jimin's brother whispered, did you mean it? JUNGKOOK froze. What? The rain clip. Did you mean you would leave everything for him? The question landed in the room like a match near gasoline. Jimin shook his head quickly, terrified, but JUNGKOOK did not run from it. His voice was quiet. I meant I would do anything in that moment to help him breathe. I did not mean I would abandon the members. I did not mean he asked me to choose. I meant someone I loved was hurting and I panicked. Jimin's brother breathed unevenly. You love him. JUNGKOOK looked at Jimin. The room went impossibly still. He answered without performance, without fear, without giving the world a shape to twist. Yes, like family, like someone whose pain matters to me. Like someone I should have listened to better. Jimin broke silently, tears slipping down his face. His brother said nothing for several seconds. Then came the sound of typing. One click, another, a shaky breath. I canceled it. The whole room exhaled at once. Jimin covered his face. JUNGKOOK lowered his head. RM's shoulders dropped. Jin whispered something under his breath that sounded half like a prayer and half like a threat against everyone involved. But before relief could fully arrive, Jimin's brother spoke again. But someone copied the draft link. Suga's eyes snapped up. What? His brother's voice turned panicked. It says duplicate created 2 minutes ago, I don't know by who. Doyeon laughed from across the room, even as security held him in place. Third twist. JUNGKOOK turned slowly toward him. Doyeon smiled. Family was never the backup. Family was the delay. The relief shattered so fast it felt cruel. Jimin still had tears on his face from hearing his brother cancel the post, but now the danger had already moved past him, past his family, past the room. A duplicate existed, somewhere, in someone else's hands. Suga took the clean phone from Jimin carefully, voice quick and focused. Hyung-nim, listen to me. Do not hang up. What platform was the scheduled draft on? Jimin's brother answered, shaken but cooperative now. Suga repeated the information to the legal director, who immediately began issuing instructions through another line. RM turned to Doyeon. Who copied it? Doyeon smiled, but his face was sweaty now. The control was thinner. If I answer, what do I get? Jin stepped toward him. You get to keep breathing comfortably. RM put a hand out without looking at Jin. Hyung. Jin stopped, furious. Doyeon enjoyed it for half a second, then looked at JUNGKOOK. Still want to claim everything, claim this too. Claim the audio where Jimin says he doesn't know who he is without you. Claim the brother who thinks you're dangerous. Claim the fans who will say care became dependency. Claim the members who will be asked if they were pushed aside. JUNGKOOK's eyes were dark, but his voice stayed even. You keep waiting for me to be ashamed. Doyeon leaned forward. You should be. No, JUNGKOOK said. I should be careful, I should be honest, I should apologize where I failed, but ashamed that someone trusted me when they were scared. No. Jimin looked at him like he could barely stand the mercy of that answer. Doyeon's smile twitched. Beautiful, useless, but beautiful. Suga muted the clean phone for a second and looked at RM. The duplicate link was created by an account with no name, but the access token came from inside the building guest network. RM turned to the manager. The manager looked horrified. That network is for visitors and outside contractors. Taehyung's face hardened. Doyeon's people. Minseo snapped. He always had people outside. Everyone turned to her. Doyeon's eyes flashed. Shut up. Minseo laughed, bitter and scared. No, I'm done being the only dirty hand. RM stepped closer. Names. Minseo looked at him, then at Doyeon, then at Jimin. Something flickered in her face. Not redemption, not enough for that. Maybe self-preservation. Maybe the first ugly shape of regret. Media broker, 2 fan site admins, 1 former security contractor. A translation account that makes rumors sound official. Suga's hands moved fast. Write them. The legal director's voice came through speaker, firm. I need those names now. Doyeon's calm broke. Minseo, she looked at him, you should have made me matter more. Jin's face twisted. That is the worst apology I've ever heard. It's not an apology, she said. I know, Jin replied coldly. That's the problem. J-Hope stood beside Jimin, watching Minseo with pain that had hardened into distance. You can help stop it now. That doesn't erase anything, but it stops more damage. Minseo looked at him for 1 second, then looked away and began nomming accounts. Suga typed. The legal director repeated each one to someone on her end. The manager coordinated with external security now. His voice low and urgent, no longer pretending he had control. The room had become a crisis center built out of betrayal and panic. But in the middle of it, Jimin and JUNGKOOK stood almost still, the storm moving around them. Jimin whispered, You shouldn't have had to say that to my brother. JUNGKOOK looked at him. He loves you. He hurt you. He was scared. Jimin's eyes searched his face. You're allowed to be angry. JUNGKOOK gave a small, tired smile. I am later. You keep saying later. Because right now you look like you might disappear if I raise my voice. Jimin looked down. Maybe I deserve it. JUNGKOOK's expression changed immediately. Don't. Jimin swallowed. I don't know how to stop thinking that. JUNGKOOK's voice softened. Then borrow what I know until you can. Jimin looked up, tears threatening again. What do you know? Jungkook answered. That you were wrong, that you hurt me, that I'm still here. All three can be true. The words entered Jimin slowly. They did not absolve him. They did not punish him. They gave him something harder, a place to stand without lying. Taehyung watched them from the table, then looked away, his own hurt still unresolved but no longer demanding to be the loudest thing in the room. Jin caught the look and moved beside him. Ribs, Taehyung winced. Pride, Jin nodded. That's terminal. Taehyung huffed a tiny laugh despite himself, then immediately looked guilty for laughing. Jin nudged him gently. We're allowed small breaths. Taehyung looked at Jimin. I don't know how to forgive him yet. Jin's voice was quiet. You don't have to do it tonight. But I don't want to lose him. That's a different thing. Taehyung nodded, eyes shining. Across the room, RM listened to the legal director confirm that 3 accounts had attempted to post fragments of the duplicate and 2 had already been locked through emergency reporting channels. And the translation account? RM asked. The legal director paused. Still active. We are trying to intercept. Suga looked up sharply. That's the dangerous one. J-Hope frowned. Why? Suga's face was grim. Because they don't need to post the file, they can post a summary and make people believe they saw it. RM closed his eyes for 1 second. How long? Could be now, Suga said, and then it happened. The manager's clean emergency phone began receiving alerts from staff outside the room. Not files, not headlines, text, translated claims, summaries, lies dressed as concern. RM read one and his face went cold. They're saying Jimin's private audio proves Jungkook isolated him from the group. Jungkook's jaw tightened. Jimin went still. Jin took the phone, read another, and cursed. They're saying the members held an emergency meeting because of Jungkook's influence. Taehyung grabbed the phone and read, voice shaking with anger. They're saying I fought with Jimin because I tried to warn him about Jungkook. J-Hope's face twisted. They're building the triangle anyway. Doyeon smiled faintly from where security held him. Told you, the world chooses faster than truth. Jungkook turned to RM. Release our statement. The manager started to object, but RM held up a hand. He looked at each member. Jin nodded. Suga nodded. J-Hope nodded. Taehyung nodded. Jungkook nodded. Finally, RM looked at Jimin. Jimin was shaking, but his eyes were clear now. Release it. RM sent the audio statement to the legal director and the official channel team with one instruction. No edits that remove member voices. The legal director confirmed. 30 seconds later, the statement went live. 7 voices, short, direct, human, not polished enough to feel fake, not detailed enough to feed the machine, strong enough to interrupt the lie. For a moment, nothing happened. That was the worst moment. The empty space between truth and reaction. Then responses began. Some confused, some supportive, some suspicious, some angry, some asking people not to spread stolen material, some already fighting, some clipping Jungkook's line, some repeating Jimin's line, some protecting them, some hurting them. The storm had begun, but it did not begin without their voice inside it. Jimin listened to the statement once from Jin's phone. When Jungkook's voice said, "No one gets to decide our truth by cutting it into pieces," Jimin closed his eyes. When his own voice followed, small but steady, he almost did not recognize it. I made mistakes because I was scared. I will face them with my members, not through someone else's lie. He opened his eyes and looked at the 6 people around him. I'm sorry. It was not enough. Everyone knew it. But it was finally said without strategy, without performance, without a hidden deal attached. Jin sighed and pulled him into a rough hug first, muttering, I'm still mad. Jimin nodded against his shoulder. I know. J-Hope joined next, quieter, holding the back of Jimin's neck like he was afraid the boy would fall apart. Taehyung stood still for a moment, fighting himself, then stepped in too, whispering, I'm not done being hurt. Jimin cried harder. I know. Suga did not hug, but he stood close enough that his shoulder touched Jimin's for 1 second, which from him meant more than a speech. RM placed a hand on Jimin's back, steady and leader-like, but his eyes were wet. Jungkook stayed outside the circle. Jimin noticed immediately. He lifted his head, the others slowly loosened. Jungkook looked at him and there was still pain there. Real pain, not erased by crisis, not softened by public unity. Jimin stepped toward him. Jungkook. Jungkook's voice was quiet. I can't hug you just because everyone else did. Jimin nodded, the honesty hurting but also grounding him. Okay. Jungkook swallowed. I want to, that's the problem. Jimin's eyes filled again. Why is that a problem? Jungkook looked away. Because I don't know if I'm choosing you or falling back into the same place where your pain becomes louder than mine. That sentence landed with devastating clarity. Jimin stepped back, not offended but understanding. Then don't choose me like that. Jungkook looked at him. Jimin's voice shook. Choose yourself too, please. I don't want to survive tonight by taking that from you again. Jungkook's eyes shone. For a moment, he looked younger, exhausted, stripped of all the coldness he had used to survive the night. I don't know how to be near you halfway, Jimin whispered. Then we learned slowly. The room went quiet around them. Doyeon was being taken out now, still smiling like the damage outside mattered more than his defeat inside. As security pulled him past the door, he turned back one last time. Slowly won't save you from tomorrow. Jungkook did not look at him. Jimin did. And for the first time, his voice did not shake when he answered. Maybe not, but tonight you don't get me alone. Doyeon's smile vanished as the door closed behind him. The statement continued spreading. The storm outside grew louder. The members stood in the ruined vocal room, surrounded by evidence, broken trust, and the first fragile shape of a new promise. Then Suga's laptop pinged again. Everyone turned, exhausted and afraid of one more twist. But this time, it was not from Doyeon. It was from the legal director. One sentence appeared in the secure chat. We found the duplicate source. It is not one of Doyeon's accounts. RM read it aloud, and every member went still. A second message arrived. It came from inside your official archive. Jimin's blood went cold. Jungkook slowly lifted his eyes. The hunter had been caught, but the door behind him had just opened.